Chapter 26. After getting closer and making sure that the person was not dead, Mandarin wanted to ask Xia Yu something, but Xia Yu had left such a deep impression on him, so when he was about 10 meters away from Xia Yu, he did not dare to get closer, for fear that there would be another Gatling gun attack, which would be too sudden. Actually, Mandarin really wanted to kill Xia Yu. He hadn't vented his anger yet, but he really wanted to use all the methods that appeared on her body. Although the 10 rings were powerful, Mandarin also had many enemies in Asia, and the 10 rings were not invincible. So although Mandarin was angry, he was really envious of Xia Yu's various methods. This kid doesn't look like someone who is easy to deal with. He never tells the truth. Mandarin is conflicted. He should kill him, but he can't bear to do so. He should take him back and torture him. He really doesn't dare to get close to this kid. He just looks at Xia Yu in silence for a while. Xia Yu's injuries were getting better with every passing minute. Since Mandarin was not in a hurry, he was even less anxious. He just looked at Mandarin without saying anything. However, his body secretly increased its strength to circulate its internal energy to heal itself. Then a strange scene appeared. In a dilapidated abandoned village on the edge of the desert, a young man in black armor was lying on a small hill next to it. He was facing the village and his feet were on the sand dunes. From time to time, a small stream of blood spurted out of his mouth. Across from him stood a strange man covered in a black robe about 10 meters away. Neither of them spoke, they just stared at each other. Puff Xia Yu opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. Mandarin watched Xia Yu spit out 4 or 5 mouthfuls of blood and said, "You are seriously injured. If you don't want to die, answer my questions well. Not only will I not kill you, I will also find someone to heal you and spare your life." Mandarin didn't know that this was Xia Yu's way of repairing the blood clots in his internal organs. Although he had practiced some martial arts in a mysterious place, the so-called qi in the martial arts in the Marvel world was not the same as the internal force in Xia Yu's body. Mandarin would never have thought that Xia Yu was healing his wounds, and thought that he was seriously injured and would not live long. "What's your name?" Mandarin asked. "Nanggong Fiyun." Xia Yu opened his mouth and came. "Isn't it Ximen Chugs Yu?" Mandarin felt himself getting angry again. "Oh, I lied to you just now. Now you see my life is in your hands, so I will definitely tell you the truth," Xia Yu said very sincerely. Mandarin did not comment and asked again, "Let me ask you, where did the sword you just saw go? What happened to the Gatling gun that suddenly appeared in your hand?" "Actually, I have a big pocket behind my butt, and the sword is in the pocket. I also took out the Gatling gun from the pocket, but it was too fast and you didn't notice," Xia Yu lied. "You're talking nonsense. Do you think I'm blind? Where is the pocket behind your butt?" The Mandarin was going crazy. "Where is the pocket on the armor you're wearing? Where is the pocket? You still don't believe me after I tell you? If you don't believe me, come and see for yourself. I'm not lying to you." Xia Yu waved at Mandarin, "Come on, come on." Mandarin was so angry that he waved his hand and a flame exploded next to Xia Yu, and shouted, "Don't think I can't kill you. If you keep talking nonsense, believe it or not, I will chop you into pieces alive. I believe it, I believe it, I believe it. Don't fight for no reason. Don't you just want to know where I got all the things from? I'm telling you the truth, just watch." Xia Yu said as he stuck his right hand into the sand, took out a pack of cigarettes, took out a cigarette and lit it, then said, "Actually, I fished them all out of the sand. There's everything in the desert. Why don't you try it?" Xia Yu just took out a cigarette, and Mandarin's heart skipped a beat, fearing that he would pull out some weapon, so he didn't react until Xia Yu finished speaking. He suppressed his anger and said to Xia Yu in a deep voice, "Nanggong Fiyun, I'll give you one last chance. I don't have much patience. Do you see this ring on my right thumb? It has a small function that can emit toxins, making you want to live but not die. When the poison takes effect, it will itch unbearably, and your body will fester and ooze pus. Do you want to try it?" When Xia Yu heard that he was extremely itchy and his body was festering and oozing pus, a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes, and he said to Mandarin, "I'll tell you everything, will you really let me go?" Xia Yu was stalling for time to communicate with the system. "Then definitely, I'll do what I say," Mandarin said. "I have one small request," Xia Yu said. "Go ahead." Mandarin waved his hand to show that he didn't care. "Well, can you send me another 100 million? Ha 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 ha. Xia Yu couldn't help laughing after she said that. How dare you play tricks on me? Mandarin was so angry that he shot a poison ray directly at her. This was a small skill of his right thumb. Xia Yu was hit instantly and immediately began to tremble all over. He growled through gritted teeth, his face was distorted beyond recognition, and black liquid slowly flowed out of his body. This was actually quite different from Mandarin's previous performance when he used this skill. Others would suffer from skin festering directly. However, the doubt only lasted for a moment. On the one hand, Mandarin was too confident in his ring. On the other hand, Xia Yu's current condition was such that anyone could see that he was in extreme pain. The veins on his neck were about to burst. As for the fact that his skin did not fester directly, it might be due to physical reasons or the energy in his body. Ah! Xia Yu let out an unclear cry, with saliva hanging from the corners of his mouth. He was in real pain. He had completed the task and earned 30,000 points. He was loading the 456th level of the Dragon Elephant Prujna art. The information system had just received two very important messages. The first was that the 9 Yang magic art's immunity to all poisons was also applicable here. The second was that loading the Dragon Elephant Prujna art would strengthen the body and repair itself, and could heal injuries at the same time. Loading the Dragon Elephant Prujna art was equivalent to crushing and reorganizing your muscles and bones many times in a short period of time. Xia Yu was really in pain. With such a drastic improvement in his body, impurities and blood would naturally flow out of his pores. Ah! Another heart-wrenching scream, blood flowed from Xia Yu's eyes. It was horrible to watch in broad daylight. He bit his teeth hard, trembling as if he had used up all his strength and said, "Kill me, I can't bear it, I'm telling you the truth." Xia Yu twitched again. Mandarin was anxious. He knew how much pain this toxin caused to people. Everyone who was infected wanted to die, so Xia Yu's reaction was expected. He quickly said, "Tell me what, tell me quickly, and I will end your pain after you finish speaking." Xia Yu took a lot of effort before opening his mouth and said, "Yes, it is this treasure, baby." As he spoke, an antique jade pendant appeared in Xia Yu's right hand. He gritted his teeth and raised it up tremblingly. Mandarin got the 10 rings by chance, so he was more likely to believe in such things than others. In addition, Xia Yu looked so weird now, so when Xia Yu took out the jade pendant, Mandarin could not take his eyes away. He firmly believed that this artifact must have more functions, which Xia Yu might not have developed all of them. This was his experience of using the rings for many years. His eyes followed the jade pendant in Xia Yu's right hand. He watched Xia Yu throw it with all her might, but it still landed a little in front of Mandarin. Mandarin quickly stepped forward and lowered his head to pick it up. A big box appeared in Xia Yu's right hand again, and he threw it towards Mandarin fiercely. At the same moment, a riot shield appeared out of thin air in Xia Yu's right hand again, and an AK appeared in his left hand. Xia Yu came to Afghanistan this time to transfer in China, mainly to buy some Chinese food and put it in the ring to use in Afghanistan. The jade pendant was bought at the airport in China. The riot shield was taken from the trunk of a drug dealer when doing a mission in New York. As for why the drug dealer has a riot shield, go and see Lucy, don't ask me. The box was loaded when Tony was rescued, and there are 3 small missiles in it. There is no need to explain the AK. Click to pause so that everyone can see more clearly. Xia Yu is sitting on the ground, with a blast shield in his right hand covering his whole body, and an AK in his left hand facing the opponent, with an abandoned village in the background. Yellow sand filled the sky, and the sun was blazing. Mandarin was just bending down to take the jade pendant in his hand with a smile on his lips. He heard tearing air sounds and looked up to see a dark shadow flying towards him with surprise in his eyes. But if he wasn't wearing a mask, we can see that the smile on his lips had not yet disappeared. Play, da-da-da-da-da-da. The author has something to say, da-da-da, it's embarrassing not to have blue light. Chapter 27. Xia Yu, who had practiced the Dragon Elephant Prujna Sutra to the 6th level, had 6 tons of strength in his hands. Even with a blast-proof shield in his hands, the impact of the missile still caused his bones to crack all over his body. Half of the bones in his 2 arms were shattered, and all his internal organs were displaced. The blast-proof shield was torn apart almost instantly. It has to be said that Tony Stark's munitions are really powerful. The shockwave of the missile directly pushed Xia Yu to the other side of the village. Xia Yu used his last bit of strength to run into a family's cellar. There have been wars here for many years, and every household has a cellar. Then he lay on the ground unable to move. He was only protected by his true energy and survived. He could only lie there and wait for the internal energy of the Nine Yang Divine Art to recover. It's just that his injury was too severe, and he didn't know how long it would take. However, Xia Yu was not in a hurry. After being blown away, Xia Yu gave himself a one-click change of clothes, took off his tattered armor, and put on the watch Natasha Romanoff gave him. Xia Yu used his last bit of strength and inner power to go into the cellar because he was afraid that Mandarin would catch up with him. He knew that Mandarin would not die. Most of Marvel's treasures are the embodiment of rules, which are unreasonably powerful. In the movies, there are restrictions on the users. But if this were in the comics, ordinary people with 6 infinite gems could kill gods. Xia Yu was right. Thanks to the automatic protection of the ring on his right index finger, Mandarin did not die. However, the impact almost took his life. He was not much better than Xia Yu. He could only use one function of his right thumb to suppress his injuries for 10 hours. He then quickly ran back to his nest to heal his wounds. He had no time to chase Xia Yu. Mandarin suffered a lot when he met Xia Yu this time. He lost 3 of the protections on his right index finger, a total of 4. Once they were used up, they were gone. He wasted 3 on Xia Yu. He was already injured, and he forced to activate several powerful ring skills, which overdrawn his mental strength. I don't know if he will hurt his essence. Compared with that, $100 million is not a loss. The first fight between the two, Mandarin, who had 10 rings in his hand and was much stronger than Xia Yu at this stage, completely had a shadow on Xia Yu. In comparison, Xia Yu saved Tony this time and got 30,000 points, which he exchanged for the strength of Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita +3, with a lot of points left. He got $100 million and also got a taste of Mandarin's strength. He made a lot of money, but at this moment, Xia Yu, who couldn't even move a finger, was still cursing in his heart why Tony Stark's missiles were so powerful. After Xia Yu had been lying there for more than 8 hours, Natasha Romanoff came. She didn't cry or scream, but after confirming that Xia Yu was okay, she sat beside Xia Yu and looked at him silently, her eyes red, and she didn't say a word. "Don't be sad, I just can't move temporarily. I will be fine soon. You see, although I can't move my whole body and you can't touch it, my handsome face is still fine. You can touch my face. Forget it, just come and let me kiss you. I haven't seen you for several months, and I miss you." Xia Yu teased her. As Xia Yu spoke, 2 tears slid down the corners of Natasha Romanoff's eyes. She lowered her head and gently licked Xia Yu's lips, and gave Xia Yu a very black widowed word, "Promise me, if something like this happens again, let me be by your side and fight with you." She didn't stop him or persuade him to stay away from danger, but just asked with tears in her eyes to fight together with him. If possible, Xia Yu really wanted to hug her, but now she had no choice but to tell her firmly, "One day in the future, we will fight together forever." Xia Yu's current condition is like a puddle of mud. Even if someone is asked to lift him, it is likely that his internal organs will be moved. So Natasha Romanoff stayed with Xia Yu in the cellar for 3 whole days. Both of their rings were a mess with all kinds of things, but there was no inconvenience. It was just that Xia Yu now had to have Natasha Romanoff take care of his eating, drinking, defecating and urinating, which was a bit awkward. Xia Yu's internal organs have been initially stabilized. Xia Yu then used his internal energy to repair the bones in his right hand. Now he can at least smoke and drink by himself. It's time for the 2 of them to go back. Neither of them wanted their relationship to be exposed to others, at least not now, whether it was S.H.I.E.L.D. or Tony Stark, so Xia Yu finally decided to call Tony and ask someone to pick her up. What was Tony Stark doing at the moment? Influenced by Xia Yu, Tony did not hold a press conference immediately after returning, but instead hurriedly coordinated resources to find Xia Yu. It was also Xia Yu's influence that made him and Pepper Potts get along earlier than before. In the movie, Tony Stark replaced the reactor with a new one and threw away the old one. Fortunately, Pepper Potts picked it up and made a beautiful glass cover with the words "Tony Stark has a warm heart" written on it. Now, instead of throwing away the old reactor, Tony Stark carved 3 Chinese characters on it, "Heart of Summer." "Xia will be fine, Tony, he will definitely come back." Pepper comforted Tony. Tony Stark put the engraved old reactor on the table, turned around and said to Pepper, "I hope he's okay, but it's been 3 days. Pepper, you didn't see how powerful the man in black was. Ethan died to save me, and Xia stayed alone to stop the monster to cover my escape, and I could only watch, Pepper. And all this was because of the weapon I invented myself, a weapon to protect us. Tony Stark held his head in his hands as he spoke. Pepper stood up and held Tony in her arms. She also hoped that Xia Yu would return safely, but it had been 3 days, and to be honest, they were both already desperate, otherwise Tony would not have engraved the 3 words Xia Xin on the reactor, which was a bit like a tombstone. Mr. Stark, Miss Potts, although this is a very inopportune time, I have a phone call coming in and Mr. Stark needs to answer it, said the humane Jarvis. Jarvis, Tony said he doesn't want to contact anyone outside for the time being. Pepper said. Miss Potts, this call is from Mr. Stark's private satellite access signal. This incoming satellite phone is the one that Mr. Stark gave to Mr. Xia. Jarvis said. Tony raised his head and looked at Pepper, both of them had ecstasy in their eyes, and they said almost at the same time, put it in. Tony, it's me. Xia Yu's weak voice sounded. I knew you were okay, I knew, where are you? We'll pick you up. This was the first time Tony Stark expressed his excitement in such a strong tone. Xia, I'm so glad you're okay. You don't know how worried Tony was about you. He wanted to stay in Afghanistan and wait for you, but was forcibly escorted back by the government. Pepper added on behalf of Tony. Hi, Pepper, you're here too. Tony made the right choice to go back. Don't mind. Xia Yu asked Pepper a question and continued, I don't know. I just brought a GPS and gave it to you. I'm in a cellar in an abandoned village, not far from where we separated. Oh, by the way, there was a missile explosion here 3 days ago. While Xia Yu was still talking, Tony Stark had already locked the location with the computer. As soon as Xia Yu finished speaking, Tony said directly, no need, I have already locked your location, I'll let Rhodes pick you up. No, Tony, all my bones are broken. I have been lying down for 3 days before I could call you. I can repair myself. I don't need a doctor, especially a military doctor to check my physical condition, do you understand? You'd better let Rhodes find a stretcher to carry me and take me back. Xia Yu said quickly. When Xia Yu said that all the bones in her body were broken and she had to lie down for 3 days before she could barely make a phone call, Tony and Xiao Leijiao's eyes turned red. Tony suppressed his tone and said, I understand. You will come back as soon as possible. I'll prepare hot pot for you. After hanging up the phone, little Pepper couldn't hold back her tears any longer and choked up. Oh my god, Tony, what on earth did poor Xia go through? He said all his bones were broken and he lay in a dark cellar for 3 days, unable to move. Oh my god. Tony's eyes also welled up in tears, and they both automatically imagined how painful and desperate Xia Yu must have been, lying alone in the dark cellar for 3 days and 3 nights, unable to move, eat or drink. What they didn't know was that Xia Yu had someone take care of his eating, drinking, defecating and urinating during these 3 days. As Xia Yu couldn't move, Natasha Romanoff even gave him. Chapter 28. Xia Yu stayed in bed for 3 days after he came back. He focused on restoring his left hand during these 3 days. He couldn't stand others dealing with his poop and fart problems. Tony Stark made him a wheelchair. At least he could take care of himself now. Xia Yu has been living in Tony's house since he came back. Xia Yu told Tony everything that happened after they separated. He told Tony everything except Natasha Romanoff and the system. He told Tony about the space ring, but he said it was a family heirloom. Tony took the ring to study it with great interest, but it definitely yielded no results. After all, it was a prop given by the system. Tony Stark tried countless methods to detect it but could not detect any energy fluctuations, nor could he analyze the material of the ring. This was a big blow to Tony, but he immediately immersed himself in the design of his own iron armor. Are you sure you don't need me to help you design a set of armor? Xia, look, I even prepared the reactor for you. Tony said, pointing to Xia's Hickson on the table. You should do your own thing first. This is your path. I have my own way of fighting. I'll leave the heart of summer with you first. You're safe here. It will be a big trouble if this thing is lost. Xia Yu said. If the plot goes as it should, then this heart of summer can save Tony's life. Tony pouted and said, don't ask me for it when you're done. By the way, come with me to the press conference tomorrow. I've been planning to hold it when I get back. Because your case has been delayed until now, people outside think I'm in the hospital for treatment. Xia Yu shook her head and refused, why would I join you in the fun in a wheelchair? I won't go. Tony asked Xia Yu, do you really support me in shutting down the weapons department of Stark Industries? Xia Yu said, why not support it? You are choosing to do the right thing, Tony. I am glad that you have found your own way. Tony Stark was very touched, thank you, Xia. You know, Pepper said I was too hasty and asked me to take it slow. Only you fully supported me. Xia Yu shrugged. When you disappeared, Stark Industries stocks all fell. I used all my wealth to buy your company's stocks. I will sell them all later. After you hold the press conference, I will buy at the bottom. My wealth has increased several times this time. Thank you, Tony. Tony Stark. Tony Stark's press conference really caused a sensation around the world. The world's largest arms company suddenly stopped selling weapons. Everyone found the news outrageous. Some TV programs even openly ridiculed the matter, saying that if Tony Stark's company stopped selling weapons, it would not be far from bankruptcy. No matter what the outside world said, Tony stayed at home and studied the Mark II armor. Jarvis, you are responsible for data calculations. Benben, you are responsible for putting out the fire if the experiment fails. Xia, you are responsible. Forget it, just sit in the wheelchair. Tony Stark only wore armor on his arms and feet and began the initial experiment. Adjust the power to 10% and start. After Tony said that, a huge force suddenly came from his feet. Tony Stark was flipped over and his head hit the wall. Swish! The intelligent robotic arm called Benben quickly went over and sprayed fire extinguisher at Tony, who was not on fire. Ha 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 ha, Tony, are you performing for me just because you're afraid I'll be bored? I should have recorded it, damn it, Jarvis, would you mind transferring a copy to my computer later? Xia Yu mercilessly mocked Tony. Xia Yu had seen this scene in a movie before, and it was even funnier when it was played live. Funny enough, after seeing it face to face, Xia Yu finally understood why Iron Man is so powerful in the movies. Tony Stark's hands-on and creative abilities are simply amazing. Basically, there is nothing he can't do as long as he can think of it. Being able to watch Tony Stark perfect his armor bit by bit in the laboratory is a wonderful and great feeling. It feels like witnessing history. With the official opening of the Marvel movie universe, Xia Yu began to look forward to the first gathering of Avengers. If nothing unexpected happens, she will definitely be one of them. This feeling is really exciting. Before Xia Yu left the wheelchair, she had been living in Tony Stark's house, as if to allow Xia Yu to fully witness the birth of Iron Man. On the day Xia Yu left the wheelchair, Tony finally succeeded. Watching Tony Stark putting on the unpainted Mark II bit by bit with the help of machinery, Xia Yu felt a little regretful. No man can resist the temptation of this battlesuit. Tony flew out in front of Xia Yu with a whoosh and didn't come back for more than 10 minutes. Xia Yu was going to go back home today, but found that she had no means of transportation, so she started to pick out Tony's sports cars in the garage one by one, and chose one to drive away. After looking around, she chose a Shelby Cobra, a classic model from 1967. It has to be said that the shapes of many classic cars are really good looking. Anyway, Xia Yu liked it very much, so she chose it. Xia Yu patted the front of the car with satisfaction, and prepared to get in the car and leave first. Boom! Fortunately, Xia Yu retracted his feet in time, and Tony Stark fell directly from above in his armor. The Shelby Cobra that Xia Yu had his eyes on was directly smashed. Benben came over and sprayed fire extinguisher again. Xia Yu walked carefully to Tony's side, looked up at the hole above, and saw that 2 layers were smashed through at once. Tony! Xia Yu kicked Iron Man lying on the ground and said, I think the lethality of your move is stronger than your weapon system. Tony stood up helplessly, took off his armor and said to Xia Yu, the material is too heavy. I plan to change it to the gold titanium alloy used by the Angel combat satellite as the shell material. What do you think? Xia Yu took out the Yishan sword from the ring with a swish and pointed it at Tony and asked, what do you think of my sword? Pretend I didn't ask, Dr. Jarvis, go order the materials, we also have to choose a color. Tony Stark said. I think gold is good, it symbolizes Mr. Stark's wealth, what do you think, Mr. Xia? Jarvis asked. Xia Yu didn't want to ruin the classic color of Iron Man, so he said casually, red and gold, it's cool and rich, it's more in line with Tony's personality. Although I don't really like what you said, I inexplicably like this color scheme. Tony said as he looked at the color scheme pattern that Jarvis completed on the computer in an instant. At this time, the TV was showing a charity reception for the Firefighters Families Foundation that Stark donated to. Tony suddenly became interested and turned to Xia Yu, "There's a reception I'm sponsoring tonight. Let's go have a drink together. After that, I can consider sending you home." "I don't have an invitation, boss," Xia Yu joked. "Jarvis, did we get an invite?" Tony asked. "Not invited in any way, sir," Jarvis replied. "Look, I don't have an invitation either. Let's go, my friend." Tony stood up and said. Since they were going to a cocktail party, the two of them changed into more formal clothes. This was the first time Tony saw Xia Yu wearing a formal suit. With a height of 1.83 meters, he was not short among Europeans and Americans. His tall and slender figure, coupled with Xia Yu's increasingly heroic face with sword-like eyebrows, even Tony Stark, who was always sharp-tongued, was speechless. He just lowered his head and muttered, "Damn it, aren't Chinese people supposed to be shorter?" Xia Yu laughed and said, "You should thank me. You have grown at least 3 centimeters since you started practicing. It's much better now." It was the first time that Xia Yu attended such an occasion. As soon as the two of them got out of the car, Tony Stark naturally became the target of the reporters. Xia Yu's temperament and appearance, plus the fact that she appeared with Tony Stark, were also photographed and recorded by the reporters at the door. Some reporters even looked at Xia Yu's face and prepared to write in the headlines tomorrow that Tony Stark brought his male lover to the cocktail party. The author has something to say, it doesn't seem to be difficult to beat the Iron Overlord. Chapter 29. As soon as they entered the room, they saw a white-haired old man chatting with 3 beauties. Tony stepped forward, patted the old man on the shoulder and said, "You are really energetic." Then he went inside. They looked very familiar. The old man turned his head tremblingly, and just saw Xia Yu, who followed Tony in. He was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't believe it. Then the old man's eyes suddenly became deep and sharp. Xia Yu felt like he was facing a real mountain pressing down on his head. Not to mention moving, he couldn't even breathe. Xia Yu was instantly covered in cold sweat. The white-haired old man was actually Stan Lee, who made a cameo appearance in the movie. He stared at Xia Yu like this for a few seconds before the pressure dissipated. Xia Yu felt like several centuries had passed. The pressure was gone, but Stan Lee's eyes became extremely complicated, showing joy, loss, relief, etc. Xia Yu had never seen such a complicated look before, and she stood there not daring to speak. Stan Lee took 2 steps to Xia Yu, patted Xia Yu's shoulder gently, and said, "This is very good, very good. Remember, don't worry too much and follow your heart, young man." After that, he ignored the women and walked towards the door tremblingly. Xia Yu came back to his senses and asked in his mind, "Tian Mao, what happened just now? Is this Stan Lee? Isn't he a guest character?" "Master, I don't have enough authority now, so I can't answer you. But don't worry, it's not a bad thing." Chmal stopped talking after explaining. Xia Yu was so upset that he quickly walked to the bar and ordered a full glass of beer. He drank it in one gulp and felt a little better. "Hey, relax, Xia, we are here to have fun, not to drink alone. Waiter, give my friend a glass of something with a softer taste," Tony said. "Tony, who was that old man you took a picture of at the door just now?" Xia Yu asked. "What old man? What's wrong with you, Xia? It's possible for me to take pictures of beautiful women," Tony said. "When we both came in, you greeted an old man with white hair, smoking a cigarette, wearing a bathrobe, and surrounded by 3 beauties." Xia Yu gestured. "You remembered it wrong, Xia," Tony said seriously. Xia Yu felt a chill rushing up from the soles of his feet. Who on earth was this person that he had met? What role did he play in this world? What did his words mean to him? Xia Yu was in a daze, and Tony was about to ask if she hadn't recovered or was feeling unwell when a voice interrupted them. "Hello, Mr. Stark and Mr. Xia, I am Agent Phil Coulson from the Strategic Law Enforcement and Munitions Department, Domestic Strategic Intervention Division. I would like to ask you two about the details of Afghanistan," said Phil Coulson. "You should change your name," Tony said. "Everyone says that." Phil Coulson nodded in agreement. "The name is so long that it would be tiring to introduce it. I have something else to do. Let's set another time. You can talk to Mr. Xia to find out the situation first." After Tony said that, he walked towards Pepper in the crowd. Xia Yu agreed with Tony's behavior of forgetting his loyalty for the sake of beauty. He would do the same if Natasha Romanoff came. Thinking of Natasha Romanoff, who is also Phil Coulson's colleague, he should give her more face. Xia Yu smiled and said to Phil Coulson's agent, "Well, Big Shot has already run away. If you don't mind, I can help you understand the situation first." "Don't mind. In fact, we are more interested in Mr. Xia than Tony Stark. I hope Mr. Xia doesn't mind me ruining your cocktail party tonight," Phil Coulson said sincerely. Looking at Phil Coulson's most honest face in the entire Marvel Universe, Xia Yu sighed in her heart. Looking honest is still very popular. At least when you open your mouth, it's hard to have a bad influence on others. "I don't mind at all. In fact, I don't know anyone here except Tony and Pepper. I would be bored to death if you didn't come to chat with me." Xia Yu shrugged. "That's great, but it's not convenient to talk here. If you don't mind, can we go somewhere else?" Phil Coulson said. Xia Yu looked up at Tony, who was dancing with Pepper, and decided not to stay here as a light bulb. Just then, a free driver came, so she said to Agent Phil Coulson, "Let's go to my house to chat. All the wines in my house are Tony's, and they are quite expensive. Let's taste them together, and just give me a ride home." "It's my pleasure." Phil Coulson smiled and made a gesture of invitation. The two drove to Xia Yu's home. Along the way, Xia Yu's mind was full of the last few words Stan Lee said to him. When we arrived at Xia Yu's house, he took out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet, thought about it and put it back, then took out a bottle of whiskey, 2 glasses and a bucket of ice. "I prefer to sit outside at this time, do you mind?" Xia Yu invited Phil Coulson to sit by the pool. "What do you want to know about Afghanistan?" "No problem for me." Xia Yu went straight to the point. There were some things he didn't intend to hide. He remembered what the old man had said just now. "Don't worry too much. Follow your heart. Then take the initiative to get involved, starting with S.H.I.E.L.D. Phil Coulson was a little surprised by Xia Yu's straightforwardness, and asked directly, "Mr. Xia is more direct than I thought. I wanted to talk to you about your house first, so I asked directly. We want to know who the black-robed man who fought with you in the desert is, and who are you, Mr. Xia?" Seeing the confusion on Xia Yu's face, Phil Coulson took out his cell phone, pulled out a photo and handed it to Xia Yu. Xia Yu saw that it was the time when she and Mandarin just started fighting, because the car Tony was sitting in was still in the photo. The photo was very blurry, taken from the air, and the people could not be seen clearly at all. "Just based on this, you know it's me?" Xia Yu asked curiously. "A satellite from the Department of Defense happened to take this photo. In fact, we just analyzed that Tony Stark was sitting in the jeep. When we got this result, Stark was in Afghanistan and asked the US military to send someone to find you," Phil Coulson explained. Seeing Xia Yu nod, Phil Coulson continued, "In fact, the next day we sent a team of experts over, and they found some traces of energy fluctuations where you fought. We are very professional in this area. We also found the wreckage of 4 other jeeps. Later, Stark took you back to the country with serious injuries to recover. It is very clear at this point. The people of S.H.I.E.L.D. analyzed the traces of battle and concluded that this was Superman-like power. Just like Phil Coulson said, they are very professional in this area. Since the time of Captain Marvel, Nick Fury has been committed to establishing an organization of superpowered humans to protect the safety of the Earth, and God knows how many secrets are buried in S.H.I.E.L.D. Xia Yu remembered that when she watched the Iron Man movie, there was an Easter egg at the end. Nick Fury went to Tony's house and told him that he was not the only superhero. It should be the appearance of the Hulk and Tony Stark that made him quickly prepare to start the Avengers plan. It is estimated that she had already caught the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time. It just so happened that she was ready to be exposed. "I don't know who that man in black robe is. He appeared suddenly. I just wanted to rescue Tony. As for me, how could you not find out who I am?" Xia Yu said. "We definitely know your name, social security number, even your academic performance since childhood and how many girls you've had a crush on, but obviously we don't know you well enough," said Phil Coulson. Xia Yu shrugged, stood up and said to Phil Coulson, "People always believe what they see with their own eyes, right?" After that, Xia Yu slowly walked to the edge of the swimming pool and slapped the pool. An invisible palm-shaped energy force slammed into the water surface with a roar, exploding a 3 or 4 meter high water column. With a splash, the water in the air fell down and the whole yard was soaked. Xia Yu crossed his hands behind his back, and the falling water drops were bounced away by the internal force he released unexpectedly. The wind on the roof blew his hair, and he looked like a master. Having watched too many martial arts movies and TV dramas when he was a child, Xia Yu had long wanted to try the feeling of a column of water exploding with a palm strike, and today happened to be the opportunity. Phil Coulson didn't say anything for a long time. Xia Yu was posing and waiting for him to ask. Was he scared by me because he didn't open his mouth for a long time? Xia Yu thought to himself. Looking back, I saw that Agent Phil Coulson was soaked all over, with a wine glass in his hand, which was originally half full but now full. Sorry, I forgot you were behind me, sorry. Xia Yu hurriedly ran to get a towel. Chapter 30. He showed his abilities roughly. Regarding Mandarin, he just told Phil Coulson what he saw. As for what Tony Stark invented in the cave, he wanted to know. He should ask Tony himself. Phil Coulson did not mention Avengers. Xia Yu knew that he had to go back and ask Nick Fury. It was estimated that the next time he contacted S.H.I.E.L.D., he would face Nick Fury directly. Nick Fury was still his client. It seemed that he still owed him a few things. This was embarrassing. In Avengers Alliance 4, it is clearly stated that the New York battle will take place in 2012. Now 2008 is just halfway over. Xia Yu remembered that Iron Man 2 was released in 2010 and Thor in 2011, but judging from the plot, Iron Man 2 followed Iron Man 1, half a year later, and Thor was synchronized with Iron Man 2. After the Avengers Alliance, the time became increasingly clear. At the beginning, I guess Marvel didn't have much confidence, and the funds and talents were not in place. They made plans but couldn't keep up with the pace. But now that I have arrived in this world, it seems that I can't count on the release time of the movie. It is very likely that Iron Man 2 will start soon after defeating Obadiah Stane. It seems that he should enter S.H.I.E.L.D. as soon as possible, join earlier and make arrangements earlier. When the Avengers Alliance becomes independent in the future, Xia Yu does not want to be suppressed by the World Security Committee or the United Nations. Since he decided to join S.H.I.E.L.D., Xia Yu thought of Natasha Romanoff and left a message for her, asking her to come and see him when she was free. Why did he leave a message? Because the beautiful agent girlfriend's phone was often out of service. After waiting for 3 days, Natasha Romanoff didn't come, but Tony Stark did. That afternoon, Xia Yu swam for a while and lay beside the swimming pool to bask in the sun, when Tony came, flying down from the sky. Xia Yu looked up and saw that there were still many scratches on the steel battlesuit. Then he sat up and asked, "Where did you go? Did you fight with some army?" Tony Stark didn't say anything. He picked up Xia Yu's glass and poured himself a full glass of whiskey. He drank it all in one breath before saying to Xia Yu, "I went to Afghanistan and killed a few Ten Rings terrorists who were massacring civilians. I found out that someone in the company was secretly selling weapons to terrorists." "Then you should call the police, Tony," Xia Yu said. "I suspect it was Obadiah. All signs indicate that it might be him. He had always been strongly opposed to my closing down of the weapons department, and he joined the board of directors to remove me from my position on the grounds of my health. I even suspect that he was the one who planned my kidnapping. He is one of the founders of Stark Industries, and it was he who helped me gain a foothold in the company after my father passed away. I treat him as my own uncle, Xia, do you understand?" Tony said excitedly. Xia Yu picked up the bottle and poured some for Tony, then took a big sip from the bottle and said, "Tony, I've heard of your father's stick theory. There can only be peace when the stick is bigger than others. It's an interesting metaphor. Your father experienced World War II. He chose to make weapons at that time and he was doing the right thing. It's the same with you choosing to close the weapons department now. Obadiah Stane is the uncle of the arms genius Tony Stark, not the peacemaker Tony Stark. You are no longer on the same path, Tony. But when I was kidnapped, I hadn't thought about shutting down the weapons department. Why did he? Before you, besides Pepper, only 2 people had permission to enter my house, and he was one of them. Did you know?" Tony Stark said. He had already figured out the rest, but he just didn't want to believe it. Xia Yu wanted to stand up and give Tony a hug, but seeing that he was wearing a steel battle suit, he could only pat him on the shoulder and said, "Although you are a super rich man, you are not a businessman at heart, Tony. But Obadiah Stane is a person who values profit. Stark Industries is a huge profit entity. He helps you gain a foothold in the company not because you are Tony Stark, but because your technology can help him turn the company into a behemoth. Do you know how to raise pigs? Tony, you definitely need to fatten them up before killing them, so that there is enough meat. Tony Stark remained silent. Xia Yu knew that Tony actually understood everything, but just couldn't accept it in his heart. Xia Yu just accompanied him and met him for a drink from time to time. After drinking 2 or 3 cups, he sighed and said, I won't give up until I see the evidence. I want Pepper to go to the company to help me find the illegal weapons transaction records, but I'm worried. Can you go with her? Definitely yes, Tony. Do you still remember the yellow-haired guy who drove you away in Afghanistan? What was his name? Well, never mind, where did you say you sent him last time? Ask him about your kidnapping, maybe you'll get something. I sent him to Iceland. I bought him a house there and gave him 5 million euros. I will find a way to contact him. Pepper will be waiting for you at the gate of Stark Industries at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Tony said and flew away with a whoosh. You are driving under the influence. Xia shouted from the rooftop. Xia Yu knew that the final boss was about to appear, so he would accompany Pepper. As for Tony, the arc reactor was probably taken away by Obadiah Stani. But it didn't matter, because there was still the heart of Xia. The system said that there would be no changes to the plot if he didn't go, so he just had to wait for Ironmonger to come out and fight the boss. The next day, Xia Yu arrived at Stark Industries on time. Pepper was already waiting for him at the door. Seeing Xia Yu coming, Pepper smiled and hugged him and said, I originally wanted Happy to come with me, but Tony said Happy was too handsome and he was worried about him, so he said he found me the ugliest bodyguard in North America. I guess that was what he meant. Xia Yu's nostrils were smoking. Sister, you have guessed what kind of person I am. She said unhappily, Tony has been jealous for a long time, you should know that. I will accompany you up, from now on I will be your personal bodyguard, please come this way, Miss Potts. Boz led the way, wearing a professional suit and high heels, and he walked with great aura. He was indeed the future president. Xia Yu came here to be a bodyguard today. He was wearing a black suit and sunglasses, and followed behind little Pepper with an expressionless face. Pepper's position in Stark Industries is the president's assistant. In fact, most of her work is Tony Stark's personal assistant. Everyone in the entire Stark industry knows how important she is to Stark, so Xia Yu followed her all the way, and the company's employees nodded and greeted her. Pepper kept her eyes straight all the way, and nodded slightly when others greeted her, which made Xia Yu involuntarily straighten her chest, so as not to be unworthy of Pepper's temperament as a domineering female president. They arrived at Tony Stark's office without any obstruction. Xia Yu cooperated and ran to the front to open the door for her. After entering, Pepper went directly to Tony's desk and hacked into the company's server with the USB flash drive given by Tony. Pepper found a secret drive inside. Opening 2 folders, they both contained documents on weapons development and trading. The third folder was called Area 16. Pepper clicked on it and saw that it was full of blueprints for transforming Stark Mark I into Ironmonger. Then Pepper also found a video. When she opened it, she found that it was a video that the terrorists had filmed for Obadiah after kidnapping Tony. Chapter 31. Xia, come and take a look at this. Little Pepper waved Xia over. Xia Yu already knew what it was. She went over to take a look and said cooperatively, oh my god, Tony's suspicion was right. It's really him. I need to preserve the evidence, so I have to make a copy of all the documents. Xia, can you watch the door for me for a while, said little Lei Jiao. Before Xia Yu could answer, Obadiah Stanislaw had already pushed the door open and walked in. Pepper was obviously startled. Xia Yu returned to her expressionless dead look and stopped Obadiah, saying coldly, get out. Obadiah Stani has been working at Stark Industries for decades. Even when Tony was the CEO, he was the one actually in charge of the company's affairs. He had long regarded Stark Industries as his own territory. How could he let Xia Yu stop him? So he ignored Xia Yu's words and wanted to push Xia Yu's arm away to come in. After pushing it, it didn't move at all. Obadiah tried again, unwilling to believe it. He could only say, what do you mean? Is there a place in this company that I can't go to? This is Mr. Stark's office, sir. No matter who you are, please leave without Mr. Stark's permission. Xia Yu said coldly. Pepper was afraid that Obadiah would become suspicious, so she said to Xia Yu, this is one of the founders of Stark Industries and Tony's uncle. Let him in. Obadiah Stani glanced at Xia Yu and said nothing. Instead, he walked to the wine cabinet, poured 2 glasses of wine and said, Tony never lacks good wine. After that, he raised his leg to pass a glass to Pepper. Those who have seen the movie know that when Obadiah entered the office, he saw Pepper's unnatural behavior and became suspicious, so he came to Pepper while pouring wine and wanted to look at the computer screen. Pepper cleverly switched to the screen protection, but Xia Yu didn't want to give him the opportunity to act awkwardly, so he flashed in front of Obadiah Stane. I can help you pass the wine to Miss Potts, you just stand here. Xia Yu said. Pepper, what do you mean? Is Tony afraid that I will violate his secretary? This is the office I reserved for Tony in the board of directors. Obadiah Stani yelled. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. Mr. Stani, come in, Xia. Little Pepper deliberately got angry at Xia Yu. I'm very sorry, Miss Potts. Mr. Stark's task to me is to prohibit any male creatures from approaching you. He said he doesn't want his girlfriend to have any smell of male hormones, except for me as a bodyguard. Xia Yu said seriously. Oh my god, congratulations, when did this happen? You should have told me earlier. I'm happy for you, you're a good woman. Pepper, what are you doing? Obadiah Stani said as he tried to congratulate Pepper, but was pushed away by Xia Yu's ruthless palm. I said, stay away from Miss Potts. You. Obadiah Stani was pushed back several steps by Xia Yu. He was about to lose his temper, but Pepper stood up and said to Xia Yu, you'd better be polite to Mr. Stani, Xia. As she spoke, she picked up the newspaper next to the computer and took the opportunity to unplug the USB drive. Xia Yu saw the whole process and knew that she had completed the copy. I'm sorry, Miss Potts, this is my job. Please understand, as long as he doesn't get close to you. Xia Yu said. Sorry, Obadiah, I'll talk to Tony about the bodyguard issue when I get back. You know, Tony sometimes. Pepper gave Obadiah Stane an apologetic look. I know. I'm just happy for you. Tell Tony that I'm waiting for him to come back to the company. I will communicate with the board of directors, provided that he stops being so willful. Obadiah Stani said. The two exchanged some meaningless nonsense, and Xia Yu followed Pepper out. Xia Yu knew that Pepper had copied successfully just like in the movie, so she unplugged the USB drive. Obadiah Stanis must have seen the interface of the successful copy. The only difference from the movie was that Pepper was not so panicked with Xia Yu present, and Obadiah Stanis did not take the newspaper in her hand. Now they were waiting to fight the boss, and sure enough, the system task came. System tasks: help follow Pepper Potts and protect her safety. After Ironmonger and Iron Man start fighting, assist Iron Man in defeating Ironmonger. Mission reward points, 8,000. If you kill Ironmonger yourself, there will be an extra reward system draw. Xia Yu accepted the mission, thinking that he would have to compete with Tony for the kill this time. However, judging from the reward, Ironmonger is still the same as in the movie, with average strength. If he hadn't stolen Tony's arc reactor, causing Tony's Mark III to run out of energy, he would have been killed by Tony long ago. As expected, when he went out, he met Agent Phil Coulson, who was sitting on a chair waiting for Pepper with a loyal face. It seemed that Tony had not seen him yet. Phil Coulson was slightly stunned when he saw Xia Yu, and immediately greeted her with a smile. Xia, you are here too, Miss Pepper, do you have time? I made an appointment with you. Pepper Potts dragged Phil Coulson away in a hurry. She needed to give the evidence to the government and bring people to arrest Obadiah Stanislavski. At this time, there was no Avengers Alliance and the superheroes had not surfaced, so if something happened, the first thing to do was to find the police, instead of having Xia Yu, a master, to take care of it directly. This is the normal thinking of people. Xia Yu followed Pepper to show Agent Phil Coulson all the documents and video evidence, and Xia Yu called Tony in front of Pepper. Tony, you guessed right. We found evidence that your uncle was in contact with terrorists. It was he who kidnapped you. We definitely also have documents on secretly selling arms. Xia Yu said on the phone. I already know that the yellow-haired man doesn't know Obadiah, but I showed him the photo and he recognized that this man had been to their base several times and provided them with weapons. Are you ready to come to me now? Tony said. No, Tony, we met Phil Coulson agent. Pepper is handing the evidence to him. Someone will arrest him soon. You'd better stay at home. I know you don't want to face him anyway. Xia Yu said and hung up the phone. Obadiah was no small figure, and Phil Coulson could not arrest him simply by looking at the evidence. He had to report to the police station, coordinate with several departments, and even notify a government official before he successfully obtained the arrest document. Even if he is successfully captured, as long as he has the technology of small arc reactor, he will probably be released without charge. In a struggle at this level, the charge is actually something that can be ignored. Tony Stark is such a powerful person. You can't see it in the movie, but Xia Yu knows that the annual political donations from Stark Industries are a terrifying number. This is why Tony Stark dared to reject the government's request in public and ridiculed the congressman. Even so, Tony finally gave Colonel Rhodes a set of armor on the pretext of something. This is not only because he is his good friend, but more importantly, this is a step to compromise with the government, and it is a compromise that both parties can accept. After Avengers Alliance 3, Avengers Alliance had the power to dominate everything, but now there is Xia Yu in this world, especially after Xia Yu's state of mind has changed, the situation may become different. No one knows what is going on, the system on Xia Yu, the Stan Lee scene at the party, and what the truth of this world is. Chapter 32. While Xia Yu was waiting for Phil Coulson's agent to handle some messy procedures, Tony Stark had been successfully ambushed by Obadiah Stane. Just like in the movie, he took the small arc reactor from Tony Stark's chest. He had already used the Mark I design to make a larger Ironmonger armor, and now all he needed was this small arc reactor as power. Obadiah Stane left, and Tony Stark was controlled by him with ultrasound for 15 minutes and couldn't move. He finally survived and crawled to the laboratory with great effort. He looked at Xia's Hickson on the table and said, "I didn't expect that I would need you to save me this time." Compared to the movies, Tony's physical condition is much better, and there is less chance of clumsy and heroic rescue here. What is the same is that Rhodes arrived in time, and Tony asked Rhodes to cooperate with him, and then flew towards Stark Industries. Tony Stark was on his way at full speed. Xia Yu and Agent Phil Coulson and his team finally arrived. Pepper led everyone to find the research site in Area 16 where Obadiah Stane was hiding. There was a heavy iron gate at the entrance. Pepper swiped the card and found that entry was prohibited. "Is my card invalid?" said Pepper. Phil Coulson stepped forward and took out a small bomb. Just as he was about to put it on the door lock, Xia Yu reached out to stop him and said, "No need to go through so much trouble." After that, Xia Yu kicked with his right leg on the spot. With such powerful explosive force, the heavy iron door flew 7 or 8 meters inside before falling to the ground with a bang. Amid the suspicious looks from the crowd, Xia Yu shrugged and said, "You used too much force. I thought it was very strong." This time Xia Yu walked in front. He knew Obadiah Stane was inside and was preparing to equip himself with armor. Phil Coulson followed closely behind him. The others took out their pistols and followed Pepper. The last man passed by the iron gate and kicked it lightly with his leg. It seemed that he thought it was fake just now. They searched around inside and found a replica of the Mark I, except this one looked bigger. It was obvious that Obadiah Stane had been secretly researching it for a long time and had even made a prototype. At this moment, suddenly 2 lights like car headlights lit up in the darkness ahead. Xia Yu knew that it was the Iron Overlord worn by Obadiah Stane, and shouted, "Be careful," and pushed the dazed Pepper aside. Just after pushing Pepper away, a huge amounts of iron fists hit between Pepper and Xia Yu. The punch missed, and Obadiah Stane drove the Iron Overlord step by step out. This was a behemoth that was more than 4 meters tall. Obadiah Stane's somewhat ferocious voice came from Ironmonger, "I recognize you, the bodyguard hired by Stark. Didn't you say you wouldn't let me get close to Pepper? Try to stop you again." As soon as the words fell, Ironmonger threw a huge fist towards Xia Yu. Xia Yu stood there without moving. He wanted to test the power of Ironmonger. Seeing that Xia Yu didn't move, Ironmonger's fist, which was almost as big as Xia Yu's upper body, fell down. "Ah!" Pepper screamed in fear, "Da-da, da-da-da." Phil Coulson and his men were shooting at Ironmonger's head meaninglessly. Bang! There was no loud noise, nor any bloody scene. Xia Yu steadily stretched out his hand to catch the punch. Except for Pepper and Phil Coulson, the others looked at the scene in disbelief. Even those who had just witnessed Xia Yu kicking the iron gate away were no exception, because the size contrast was too shocking. If the ground under Xia Yu's feet had not cracked, they would have thought that this Iron Overlord was an empty shell. "I stopped him, so what?" Xia Yu looked up and said to Obadiah Stani calmly. Impossible, this is fake. Fake. Go to hell. Obadiah Stani couldn't accept that the Iron Overlord he had carefully made was caught by Xia Yu so casually, and he punched Xia Yu madly one after another. Xia Yu was afraid that the fight would accidentally hurt Little Pepper and the others, so he used light footsteps to dodge Iron Overlord's attacks, while waving to Little Pepper and the others to leave quickly. Lingbo Weibu is a very graceful movement, and Iron Man is rather heavy, so he could not hit Xia Yu even if he died of exhaustion by punching her one after another, so Xia Yu just walked back and forth leisurely within a few meters, very calmly. Before Phil Coulson left, he glanced at Xia Yu, and recalled the back of Xia Yu who slapped the swimming pool water that day. Suddenly, a Chinese idiom emerged in his mind, extraordinary bearing. Xia Yu definitely didn't know that his pretentious behavior was highly recognized by Phil Coulson. While dodging his punches, he taunted Iron Man, "Do you feel very angry? Do you feel like you are a ferocious tiger, only to find out that you are a cute kitten? I'm sorry, I described it too politely. Let me change it. Have you ever felt the humiliation of being 6 feet 4 inches tall but finding yourself a tiny toothpick when you take out your trousers? Hey! I'm talking to you. Can you answer me? You're so rude. What's with the major shareholder of a listed company? Ugh! Xia Yu spat on the ground while speaking to express her disdain. Obadiah Stani went completely crazy. He raised a heavy machine gun on the right arm of the Iron Overlord armor and started firing at Xia Yu. Xia Yu quickly dodged, and the bullets followed closely behind him. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Obadiah Stanis was also so angry that he fainted. How could a technological product like you fight with others? I'm going to kill you. Obadiah's roar could be heard amid the sound of bullets. You can talk about it first if you can hit me. You can't afford to play with me when you are fighting well and suddenly pull out a machine gun to shoot me. Xia Yu even had the leisure to mock others, as if he had forgotten how he treated Mandarin in the desert. After playing for so long, Xiao Lajiao and the others should be safe. Xia Yu found a free moment and rushed to the door. It was too dangerous to fight inside. There was also a large arc reactor on the first floor. It would be troublesome if it exploded. Obadiah followed closely behind, and when Xia Yu rushed to the door, he actually saw Xiao Lajiao still standing at the door. Even if they had a good relationship, Xia Yu now had the urge to curse, "I've been staying in here for a long time, and you're not leaving yet. What are you thinking? What are you doing here?" Add buff. Fortunately, Tony Stark arrived at this time and said to Xia Yu, "Leave it to me, you take Pepper away first." Then he flew towards Ironmonger. Xia Yu picked up Little Pepper and flew out directly. After walking 4 or 5 streets, he put Little Pepper down and said, "I'll go and help. Be careful and don't run around." After saying that, he didn't care whether there was anyone around and rushed to the battlefield as fast as he could. Just as I was about to run to the place, I saw Tony Stark flying into the sky with Ironmonger. Xia Yu slapped his head in anger. He couldn't afford to offend someone who could fly. It seemed that he also needed to get a battlesuit. What should he do? He would go to the roof of Stark Industries and wait. Since he went up to the sky according to the original plot, he would definitely come down according to the original plot. Xia Yu rushed to Stark Industries again. The author has something to say, I'll grab your sofa la 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 la. Chapter 33. Due to the energy limit of the Heart of Summer, Tony Stark eventually took Ironmonger to high altitudes. 2 long flames streaked across the sky. Countless people saw the 2 steel armors flying into the sky. Tony Stark, who had only 7% of his energy left, was finally caught by Ironmonger at the maximum altitude. Obadiah Stani swept away the anger that he had felt at being teased by Xia Yu, and manipulated the Iron Overlord to pinch the neck of Mark III, and said to Tony proudly, "What else can you do, Tony? I am stronger and more powerful than you." "Then how did you solve the freezing problem?" Tony asked calmly. Freezing problem? Obadiah Stani realized that due to flying too high, ice had begun to form on Ironmonger's body. The power system began to lose response, and even the 2 lights in his eyes went out. "Let me help you solve it." Tony Stark playfully knocked on Ironmonger's head, breaking a small piece of ice wrapped around it. Ironmonger let go of Tony Stark and began to fall. Tony Stark's Mark III also lost all its energy, and could only activate a little bit of backup energy to slow down itself from time to time during the high-speed fall. It staggered 4 or 5 times before landing on the roof of Stark Industries. Xia Yu had just gotten on the elevator. "Tony, how are you?" Tony answered Pepper's call as soon as he landed. "I'm fine." Before he could finish his words, he was grabbed by Ironmonger, who had reached the rooftop at some point. It turned out that Ironmonger had also thought and restored his power during the fall. "Tony, are you okay?" "Tony." Pepper was still calling Tony nervously on the phone. At this moment, Tony Stark was firmly held in the hands of Ironmonger. The Mark III steel battlesuit without energy was like a toy being ravaged by Ironmonger at will. The outer shell of the Mark III battlesuit was already shape-shifting under the squeeze of Ironmonger's hands. If this continued, Tony Stark would probably be squeezed into a meat paste. "Fire the incendiary bombs." Tony Stark, who was unable to break free, ordered Jarvis. Countless small incendiary bombs began to be fired from the Mark III, which landed on Ironmonger's head one after another, burning Ironmonger's aiming system alive and finally causing Ironmonger to loosen his hands. Tony also took the opportunity to hide behind a staircase exit on the rooftop and whispered to Pepper, who hadn't hung up the phone yet, "Pepper, I need help. Where is Xia? He went to look for you. I don't know where he is." I'll call him now." Xiao Leijiao panicked and quickly hung up the phone to contact Xia Yu. Xia Yu's phone had been broken in Area 16 just now, so it was destined that he could not get through. However, as Ironmonger got closer and closer, the rooftop was so small that Tony Stark had nowhere to hide. Tony Stark had no choice but to rush out when Ironmonger wasn't paying attention, and just like in the movie, he climbed onto Ironmonger's head by relying on his small size, and tried to destroy as much of the armor and the wiring behind Ironmonger's head as possible. But in the end, Ironmonger grabbed him and threw him forward onto the patio of his Hust industrial building. This is a circle of tempered glass, facing the large arc reactor on the first floor. It was jointly built by Tony's father, Howard Stark, and Anton Vank. The original plot in the movie was that Tony Stark and Pepper Potts cooperated to use this reactor to get rid of Ironmonger, but this time Pepper Potts was already several blocks away, and Tony had no chance. Chapter 34. Ironmonger used the machine gun on his arm to shoot all the glass in the patio cleanly. Tony Stark could only hold on to a beam tightly. This was a very tragic lesson for Tony Stark, who had just become Iron Man. Since he was standing on the enemy's side, there was no such thing as mercy. Watching Ironmonger raise his left arm again, revealing a micro-missile launcher, Tony Stark closed his eyes in despair. Ironically, the micro-missile was his invention. "Hey, I don't want to disturb you too, but I have to say, can't your company have an elevator that goes directly to the top of the building? Do you know how long I spent searching for the passage up on the top floor? Just because the two major shareholders of this company have flying armors, do you ignore the convenience of others?" Xia Yu's voice sounded behind Iron Man. "It's you again, kid." Obadiah Stane controlled Iron Overlord to turn around and said, gritting his teeth when he saw Xia Yu. Xia Yu ignored Obadiah Stane's words and said to Tony Stark, "Tony, for your own safety, you'd better design me a steel battlesuit that can at least fly." "Kid, I'm talking to you, you'd better look at me." Xia Yu's blatant disregard made Obadiah Stane extremely angry. As he spoke, he controlled the Iron Overlord to aim the missile launcher at Xia Yu. "It's very rude to interrupt others when they are talking. You turtle hiding in your bulky shell, if you weren't afraid of hurting others by mistake, do you think you would have the chance to stand on the roof and bully your poor nephew?" Xia Yu said while looking at Tony Stark with pity. Tony's face turned red, and he was about to say something in rebuttal, but Obadiah Stane couldn't help but take action. "Go to hell!" Obadiah Stane shouted and fired the missile. What Xia Yu is afraid of now is a long-range, high-powered attack. If Iron Overlord takes off into the air and uses modern weapons to bombard him, he will just run away. But on the ground, especially at close range, this kind of bulky large armor is simply a sitting duck for Xia Yu. With a few dodged steps, Xia Yu came in front of Iron Overlord. With a flip of his right hand, the heavenly sword appeared out of thin air. Xia Yu began to circle around Iron Overlord quickly, destroying the joints, lines, weapons, etc. of Iron Overlord's armor with the heavenly sword. The reinforced steel used by Iron Overlord and the heavenly sword were like wood and a kitchen knife, except that the wood was a bit thicker, and iron filings flew everywhere. Xia Yu seemed to be as relaxed and comfortable as trimming green plants. No matter how powerful a weapon is, it is useless if it can't hit a person. Soon, Ironmonger's armor became bumpy, and sparking threads appeared in many parts of his body. Obadiah Stanley could not keep up with Xia Yu's speed. By the time he reacted, Xia Yu had stopped, and Ironmonger was completely unable to move and became a waste. Xia Yu shrugged awkwardly at Ironmonger and said, "I've seen the blueprints of Mark I from Tony. Although I can't build it, I can dismantle it." "Sorry, Mr. Stanley. Oh, by the way, you can't get out now? Let me help you." Xia Yu's eyes were fierce, and he walked step by step to Iron Overlord with the sword of Heavenly Sword in his hand. "No, Xia, wait!" Tony Stark, who had just climbed out of the patio area, shouted. There was no way out in the movie, but now he had to watch Xia Yu kill Starny, and he felt a little bit reluctant emotionally. Xia Yu ignored Tony Stark's words and stabbed Obadiah Stanley with a sword through Ironmonger's heavy armor. Mission completed. Congratulations to the owner for obtaining 8,000 points. The system will draw a lottery. Tmul's voice came in my mind. Chapter 35. Tony, do you know that letting him live will cause huge amounts of threats to you and the people around you? I'm not afraid, so you can also not care? But what about Pepper? This is war. Tony, not a business game. Xia Yu said as he drew out his sword. Tony Stark just lowered his head and said nothing. Xia Yu put the sword back into the ring and came over to sit with him in a daze. After sitting there for a few minutes, Xia Yu suddenly slapped his head and said, "At this time, the protagonist should have won the victory, and the heroine should come over to offer a passionate kiss. Why do I have to sit on the rooftop and stare blankly with an old man like you after I finally defeated the villain? That's because you threw Pepper a few blocks away. We were supposed to have a passionate kiss and I was the protagonist." Tony began to speak. "It turns out that all capitalists are ungrateful. It was me who defeated this guy. It was me. When I came up, you were holding that iron rod and shivering like a poor little white rabbit." Xia Yu said, pointing at the beam on the patio. "That's because the heart of summer I carry with me is too rubbish. That's my equipment," Tony said as he went over and took down the small arc reactor from Ironmonger. "I didn't ask you to take Xia's Hickson with you. It's your own fault that you were stupid and someone robbed her," Xia Yu said as he took out the heavenly sword and chopped the Iron Overlord into pieces. By the time Agent Phil Coulson and the government people came up, the reactor had been taken away by Tony, Ironmonger had become a pile of scrap metal, and Obadiah Stane's body was lying next to him. Tonight was a joint operation, and one of the people Phil Coulson led was even from the US military. Seeing that they had gained nothing, the group looked at Xia Yu and Tony in confusion. After all, Phil Coulson was familiar with Xia Yu, so he asked, "What's going on, Mr. Xia?" "Oh, a meteor fell from the sky just now and smashed this BD into this state," Xia Yu said seriously. "Tony Stark will naturally be the one to negotiate with the government, because he has a high status and is very confident. He is so confident that he is too lazy to negotiate with the government today, because he hasn't had dinner yet." So the three of them, along with Xiao Lajiao, went to Xia Yu's house to eat hot pot. Originally, Xia Yu wanted to invite Phil Coulson to join them, but Phil Coulson was busy cleaning up their mess that night and didn't have time at all. Xia Yu had to be the light bulb by herself. Unexpectedly, she got a surprise after returning home. There was another light bulb, although it looked very dark and didn't seem to light up. "Do you think you are the only two superheroes in the world?" This was the first sentence Nick Fury said when Xia Yu turned on the light after returning home. To be honest, Xia Yu was startled. When the elevator stopped, he knew there was someone at home. He thought it was Natasha Romanoff, but it turned out to be this guy. "Definitely it's not just the two of us. There's also a giant green monster that can transform and has destroyed half of Harlem in New York. I saw it online before you blocked the video. Do you really think I would believe the lies the government made up later?" Xia Yu came up and started to scold me. "Who told you to hide in my house without turning on the lights to scare me?" Nick Fury said, "Xia, you were much friendlier the last time we met. I remember you even made me some tea." Xia Yu rolled his eyes and said, "Last time you were my client, Nick, today you are trespassing. I have the right to shoot you, Nick." The author has something to say. "This morning, I messed up the chapter. I'll change it." Chapter 36. Seeing Xia Yu seemed to know someone, Tony pulled Little Pepper to sit on the sofa and asked, "So, who are you?" Before Nick Fury could speak, Xia Yu replied to Tony, "He used to be my grandfather's client. I treated him once. He was a nice guy, but now it seems that he is from a government department, such as the strategy department or something. Now it has been renamed S.H.I.E.L.D., and I am Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know why the health doctor I met in New York suddenly became Tony Stark's friend, a major shareholder of the Herbal Group, and possesses a mysterious super ability. Nick Fury said after sitting down on the sofa. Xia Yu was preparing something in the kitchen. He liked to eat out. Hearing this, he said to Nick Fury, "We are off work, Nick. Let's talk about it tomorrow. And what I have is not called a super ability, but a martial arts skill." Nick Fury stood up and cursed at the attic, "Damn it, you still owe me several treatments? I applied for a card and recharged the money. Now that you're quitting, I haven't received your refund. Do you want me to sue you in court? Xia. I'm still your grandfather's friend." Xia Yu was carrying a bunch of things in his hands and said with a smile, "A guest is a guest. Stay and have a meal, Nick, my friend." The dining table was set up in a mess, and 4 people gathered around a copper pot to eat hot pot meat and vegetables. Marvel's superhero group dinner was played by Xia Yu to resemble the scenes in Hong Kong movies where several gangsters divide up the territory. Especially when Nick Fury was telling Tony Stark and Xia Yu about the Avengers' plan in a vivid way, and even picked up a piece of fat beef and stuffed it into his mouth with a grin. Xia Yu stared at him blankly, and always felt that the style of the picture was not right, just like the big liar he met at a dinner party in his previous life, who stuffed vegetables and peeled pickled garlic into his mouth while asking him, "Brother, I have a project worth 80 million yuan, which will pay back in 2 years. Are you interested?" But it also feels so real. As a human being, how can you always stand in someone else's room with the lights off, waiting for them to go home, then slowly turn around and say a very pretentious rhetorical question? "Nick, I have a question for you," Xia Yu said. "You say." Nick Fury was very happy. "Did you just stand there with your back to the door without turning on the lights after you entered my house? Aren't you bored? What if we didn't come back for 3 hours, or we chatted downstairs for half an hour before coming up? Would you feel embarrassed? Would you want to go to the bathroom? Or were you secretly watching from the window, and when you saw us come in, you quickly turned off the lights and posed, while you were actually sitting on the sofa watching a talk show before?" Xia Yu asked in rapid fire. Nick Fury. They skipped the topic that was embarrassing for the S.H.I.E.L.D. director and started talking about Avengers again, but Tony Stark obviously had no interest in it. The main reason was that there was no alien threat at the moment, the interior of the Earth was relatively peaceful, and even Hydra had not surfaced. Xia Yu said that he could accept it, but only for the Avengers, and he did not want to participate in any S.H.I.E.L.D. actions. He still liked to be free, and he had his own plans, but Nick Fury's next words made Xia Yu unable to sit still. "Since you, Xia, have no interest in joining S.H.I.E.L.D., I plan to send Natasha Romanoff on more dangerous missions in the future. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is short-staffed right now, and it's rare to have an agent as good as Natasha Romanoff." As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury hit Xia Yu's sore spot at once. Xia Yu and Natasha Romanoff thought their relationship was well kept secret, but in front of Nick Fury it was like a woven bag fluttering in the wind, full of loopholes. Chapter 37. Xia Yu jumped up like a monkey whose tail was on fire, and the chopsticks in his hand were placed in the starting position of Dugujijian, and he shouted at Nick Fury, "You shameless old BD, what device did you install on Natasha Romanoff, a bug or some kind of camera implanted in her eye?" Tony Stark fanned the flames. "Xia, although I am a little sad that you didn't tell me that you had a girlfriend, I have to say that the heads of every intelligence agency are absolute bastards. They want to monitor everyone in the world, including bathing, sleeping and eating." Nick Fury's face turned red. "If you could tell," he said, "I'm beginning to regret why I came to persuade you two to join the Avengers plan. I never do this to my subordinates. It was Natasha Romanoff's schedule that betrayed her. You forgot that the first time you two met, I asked her to go to your place when she was injured. My original intention was to ask her to take refuge in your studio, but I didn't expect her to stay in Chinatown for a whole week. Later, when you were in Los Angeles, she also came to Los Angeles. When you went to New York, she also went. Do you think I'm a fool? At least I know where my subordinates have been." Xia Yu picked up a meatball with chopsticks, slowly sat on the chair and said, "Then you shouldn't use her to threaten me to join S.H.I.E.L.D. You are a senior government official, Nick, how can you be so shameless? You still owe me a refund." Nick Fury said expressionlessly. "Okay, I'll join, but I have a condition. I don't usually get involved in any affairs, and I don't want to go to work with you. Just notify me when there is a task. Xia Yu said. Tony was surprised to hear this and said, although I know you joined for your girlfriend, why did you not respond when he mentioned money? Are you short of money recently? Didn't you cheat someone out of 100 million in Afghanistan? Xia Yu felt even more embarrassed, scratched his head and said, I bought your company's stock when you disappeared last time, and I sold it when you came back and the stock price went up. Later, you announced the closure of the weapons department, and your stock price dropped by $56. I bought all the stocks I had, and only kept $3,000 on me. I'm waiting for you to develop new projects and the stock price to go up before selling it. After saying that, Xia Yu looked at Tony sheepishly and said again, if it weren't for the company's charter that prohibits random dividend distribution, I would have wanted to embezzle the funds from the herbal medicine to buy Stark's stock. Xia, you're becoming more and more like in a hole, Tony Stark concluded. Nick Fury's trip was not in vain, at least the Avengers have a fighting force. It's a pity that Tony Stark did not join in, but this was also within Nick Fury's expectations. There is no rush to take it slow. He has been waiting for this plan for many years, so he doesn't care about a little while. After dinner, Nick Fury left first, while Tony Stark and Pepper Potts stayed behind tacitly. Xia, tell me what's going on. Little Lei Jiao asked with a smile. No matter which world, women always care more about these gossips than men. Xia Yu had nothing to hide from the two of them since Nick Fury had already exposed her, so she just talked about how they met. Xiao Lajiao thought it was very romantic. The agent was a beautiful woman, and he sang for her in Times Square, just like in the movies. Tony curled his lips and said, you are so lucky to get a beautiful agent like this. But think about it, you can also know me, Tony Stark. Xia Yu smiled, Tony, you are shameless or not, you are the lucky one, I just saved your life again today, knowing me is definitely the most successful business in your life, tell me how many things I can help you solve, such as the shrapnel in your chest, are you still unwilling to take it out? Tony said seriously, Xia, do you know? I designed my first circuit board at the age of 4, designed a V8 engine at the age of 6, graduated from MIT at the age of 17, and took over Stark Industries at the age of 21. I pushed the company to the top, and the weapons I made are the most powerful in the world. I believe in my father's stick theory. I thought I made the biggest stick and I guaranteed people's safety, but I was wrong. The world does not need the Tony Stark of the past, but needs a man in a steel battle suit to stand up and protect them. Chapter 38. Tony patted Xia Yu on the shoulder and continued, I don't have as powerful martial arts as you, but I have my brain and my technology. I will no longer go to meetings and socialize, and no longer sign research contracts. I will only do this one thing in my life, wearing a steel battle suit to protect those who need protection, and this. Iron Man pointed to the reactor on his chest, this can remind me that this is the meaning of my life. If I take it down, I will die. In this way, I will never forget my mission. Tony Stark's words were extremely sincere. This was what Xia Yu liked about Iron Man when watching movies in her previous life. Although he was sharp-tongued and arrogant, he was always in self-metamorphosis. After the aliens came, he wanted to arm the entire Earth with armor. When Rhodes was accidentally injured by Vision and fell, he added a parachute to the little Spider-Man's battlesuit. Xia Yu didn't know what to say for a moment, so he stood up and walked to Tony, put a hand on Tony's shoulder, and the internal force of the Nine Yang divine art quickly circulated in Tony's body, and then he gently patted Tony on the back. Puff! Tony opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of mercury-like liquid. What is this? Pepper and Tony asked at the same time. It hasn't been long since Tony Stark installed the reactor on his chest. In addition, the appearance of Xia Yu in this world has made Tony's body much stronger and his resistance to toxins has also increased a lot, so he himself has not discovered this problem yet. I don't know, ask yourself. I just felt that putting such a thing in your body is not clean, so I checked it. Xia Yu said. Tony Stark quickly responded, this should be palladium poisoning. After that, Tony turned back to look at Pepper and said, don't worry, I will find another element to replace it. Early the next morning, Xia Yu was taken to Stark Industries. Tony was going to hold a press conference today. Regarding what happened last night, Phil Coulson and Rhodes had already arranged Tony's statement, which was definitely a long lie. Phil Coulson also gave Xia Yu a cell phone and a shield ID. Xia Yu looked at the title of first level agent on the certificate and said depressedly, "It's just a certificate anyway, can't it be a little higher level?" Phil Coulson smiled and said, "Director Nick said that unless you are willing to accept S.H.I.E.L.D.'s full dispatch, you will be a first level agent for the rest of your life." Xia Yu snorted and said, "It's one level, there's no discount when shopping in the supermarket anyway." Phil Coulson patted his shoulder comfortingly and said, "Personally, I envy you very much. You were able to win over Natasha Romanoff, whose nickname is Black Widow." Xia Yu wanted to tell him that personal charm is something that people with high hairlines like you don't understand. After thinking about it, she decided not to bully an honest man and said, "Don't you need me to provide a personal account to receive my salary?" "Nick said you are a capitalist and don't need a salary, and you still owe him money," said Phil Coulson. "Damn." Xia Yu wanted to say something, but Tony was ready to go on stage, so she had to give up and go out to watch the fun. Iron Man vs Ironmonger was witnessed by many people on the road. Xia Yu sent Pepper away, but no one noticed and it was not exposed for the time being. Just like in the movie, the female reporter who had a one-night stand with Tony pursued Tony relentlessly. Finally, Tony Stark looked at the speech in his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then said the line that opened the Marvel movie universe, "I am Iron Man." Chapter 39. After the press conference, Xia Yu remembered that there was still one system lottery that he hadn't drawn yet. When he opened it, he saw that there were still 8 meaningless identical options. However, this time, Xia Yu was very excited about the item, the 18 palms of the dragon subduing. Now Xia Yu lacked a means of long-range attack. Every time, Xia Yu used the internal force of the 9 Yang divine art to strike out and smash, which seemed unskillful and a waste of internal force. With the 18 palms of the dragon subduing, it was different. Not only was it powerful, but the sound and light effects were also first class. When Tony tried it for the first time, he was shocked and exclaimed that it was simply magic. In fact, it is almost the same as magic. It is nothing more than a different application of energy. It is to compress and condense the internal force into a dragon-shaped energy to hit the target. It should have been modified by the system. In fact, there are only 2 moves. Either it is to constantly release dragon-shaped internal forces to cause a range damage, and there is also a big move that condenses 18 dragons into one and releases it at once. It is more suitable for large-scale damage. In terms of single-point damage, it is not as high as the single-point energy density of the laser fired at full power by the reactor in Tony's chest. However, Xia Yu is already very satisfied. With the 18 dragon subduing palms, he will naturally have the 6 Meridians divine sword in the future, so there is no need to rush. After joining S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury generously sent Natasha Romanoff to Los Angeles for a long time, seemingly in order to win over Xia Yu, or perhaps to compensate Xia Yu for not having a salary. The official task given was to get close to Tony Stark through Xia Yu, give him an objective evaluation, and then invite him to be a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. It is worth mentioning that in Xia Yu's memory, Natasha Romanoff should have had a mission to escort scientists in Iran during this period of time. See Captain America 2 for details. However, she encountered Winter Soldier and the mission failed. She was also shot in the left lower abdomen by Winter Soldier. However, Natasha Romanoff was not sent to carry out this mission. It seems that with her joining, some not very important plots have been slowly affected by her. Thinking of what Mr. Lee said at the charity reception for the families of firefighters, Xia Yu was horrified at the truth of this world, but now that he had lived a new life and had the system in his possession, he should still follow his heart. Tony was determined to become Iron Man, so he handed the management of the company to Pepper Potts in advance. Xia Yu brought Natasha Romanoff to Malibu Beach to find Tony every day, taught Tony to practice the simplified version of Yi Jin Jing, and gave Natasha Romanoff daily massages to promote blood circulation. With Natasha Romanoff's experience in hundreds of battles and Xia Yu's guidance, Tony Stark's personal combat power was incomparable to that in the movies. While Tony is fully researching the iron battle suit, he is also helping Xia Yu develop a set of armor. Compared with the Mark system, Xia Yu's main requirement is the flight function. In view of Xia Yu's combat style and ability, this new type of armor, which Tony jokingly calls the men's bikini, is also on Tony Stark's development list. Because of Xia Yu, Tony also created a file for Natasha Romanoff on his own server. It can be seen that Natasha Romanoff will also get many combat props produced by Tony Stark in the near future. This made Nick Fury very happy when he heard Natasha Romanoff's report, and he became more determined to quickly bring Tony Stark into S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony and Xia Yu, one can help Tony improve his physical fitness, and the other can tailor equipment according to personal circumstances. This is equivalent to one level and one equipment in a game. They are simply two fathers and must stay. So with Nick Fury's intentional or unintentional letting go, Natasha Romanoff finally revealed inadvertently at a lunch of the three of them that one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. was Howard Stark. Then Nick Fury waved his hand again and asked Phil Coulson to deliver the items left by Howard in S.H.I.E.L.D. This move allowed Tony Stark to develop new elements before the start of Iron Man 2, and the new arc reactor was born. The impact of this move is that Tony Stark became a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. and accelerated his company's new energy layout. The Stark building in New York has been put on the agenda, and the research and development of the Mark series has also been accelerated a lot. The past few months have been the most comfortable days for Xia Yu. Natasha Romanoff is with him every day. His two bottom fishing of Stark Industries stocks have turned the $200 million in his hands into nearly $800 million. It can be said that he has gained both money and beauties. I believe that with the opening of the Stark Industrial Expo, Xia Yu's stocks will see another exaggerated increase. This expo is what Xia Yu is most looking forward to recently. First, his wealth is about to surge again, and second, the expo is also a sign of the beginning of Iron Man 2. This shameless act of using Tony's accident to hype the stock also gave Tony Stark an opportunity to force Xia Yu to be the opening singer of his expo. Xia Yu originally refused, but Tony Stark directly threatened Xia Yu that if she did not agree, he would withdraw his herbal medicine group's shares and talents, merge it into Stark Industries for redevelopment and production. Anyway, he has the formula, so if you are not satisfied, you can sue. Stark Industries' huge legal department will definitely make you understand what it means to have no way to appeal. Under such a blatant threat, Xia Yu could only lower his head as a stock god. You see, Xia, this is the power of capital, said Natasha Romanoff. Chapter 40. Finally, this day has come. There are crowds of people outside the Stark Industries Expo. The Stark Industries Expo has a long history. As early as World War II, Captain America had visited the Stark Industries Expo with Bucky before he participated in the Transformer Soldier program. As the world's largest technology company, Stark Industries Expo always allows people to see the future direction of technological development. Every time, there are individuals, companies, and even government departments from all over the world who come to study and visit. This is a highly anticipated event, and this year, after Tony Stark proudly announced that he was Iron Man, the event was once again pushed to a terrifying climax. Damn it, I don't know why I agreed to let Tony come here. Xia Yu said depressedly as he listened to the thunderous voices outside calling for Tony Stark. Natasha Romanoff carefully helped Xia Yu to tidy up her clothes. She was going to sing on stage soon. Hearing Xia Yu complain, Natasha Romanoff gently kissed Xia Yu on the lips and said with a smile, "You have made hundreds of millions of dollars in the stock market. This should be the highest paid performance in the world." After thinking for a while, Natasha Romanoff whispered in Xia Yu's ear, "Or are you envious of so many girls out there calling Tony's name, and you would rather they call your name?" After several months of living together day and night, Natasha Romanoff treated Xia Yu very differently than before, especially after Xia Yu cured her inability to get pregnant, so Xia Yu didn't dare to talk nonsense about such a life-threatening issue. "Absolutely not, I just think it's too noisy. As long as you are the audience for me to sing, it's enough. Even if the audience are shouting my name, in my eyes they are no different from the flowers and plants and trash cans on the roadside. I only look at you, dear." Xia Yu answered seriously without any mistakes. "Seriously?" Natasha Romanoff wondered. "More real than diamonds? The way you look at me is as clear as the melted snow in the Alps." Xia Yu said to Natasha Romanoff. "You've passed. It's time to get ready to go on stage. I'll be downstairs cheering you on later," said Natasha Romanoff. Before Xia Yu could speak, Tony Stark called. "How is it, Xia, are you prepared? Are people outside shouting my name? Don't be nervous, just sing casually. Your role is to liven up the atmosphere before the protagonist appears, so don't be too nervous, okay?" Tony Stark laughed maliciously, his voice accompanied by the sound of whistling wind. "Mind your own business, Tony. Be careful not to hit me when you land." Xia Yu said and pressed the hang-up button without waiting for Tony to answer. "You're about to break your phone. I'm going to be a spectator down there. My big star, remember, I'm here to see you." Natasha Romanoff comforted Xia Yu again. Xia Yu chose the song Rolling in the Deep again this time. He didn't want to bring too many songs that he hadn't sung in his previous life, especially in front of the public, as he was not here to be a singer. As expected, when the prelude sounded as he went on stage, there was a burst of boos from the audience. "Get off, boy, we want to see Tony Stark. Come on down, we're not here to listen to music, we want to see Iron Man." There was a lot of cursing from the audience. Natasha Romanoff, who was sitting below, looked at Yu's constipated expression and couldn't help laughing out loud. Her big boy was so adorable. Xia Yu's mood is not cute at all now, damn Tony Stark. After taking a few deep breaths, Xia Yu said with a smile, "I know everyone wants to see Tony Stark as soon as possible, he is Iron Man, right? But the big shot always takes a little time to appear, especially a big shot like Tony, he needs a little time to adjust the height of his heightening insole, so let me sing a song for you first." The song name is Rolling in the Deep. The author has something to say, finally it's back to normal. There are more chapters today, but the word count is still the same. Chapter 41. After saying that, Xia Yu ignored the louder boos from below and started singing. Although the audience's enthusiasm for Iron Man remained unabated, the lethality of this classic song was still quite great. The boos from the audience gradually disappeared, and some people even began to hum along with the rhythm. Natasha Romanoff looked at Xia Yu, who was getting into the groove on the stage, and remembered the song he sang to her in Times Square when she first met him. From then on, she began to have a life like an ordinary person. Her future life would no longer be filled with missions and battles, but she would truly have a home of her own, a home for two people. Finally, as Natasha Romanoff's reverie continued, the song on the stage gradually came to an end. As Xia Yu finished her last sentence, Tony Stark finally made his handsome debut in the spotlight. A red and yellow steel armor whizzed in from the sky. Tony Stark, wearing the Mark VI that was released in advance, knelt on one knee and landed steadily on the landing platform that had been prepared long ago, instantly causing huge amounts of sound waves in the audience, and all kinds of screams were heard. Xia Yu glanced at Tony in annoyance and quietly began to leave the stage, but Tony had no intention of letting Xia Yu go. Instead, he raised his hand to signal the audience to keep quiet, and he said loudly, "Thank you to this unknown singer for the affectionate performance. I have to say, it's not bad as my debut music." Xia Yu rolled her eyes and walked off the stage directly. Tony, on the other hand, performed a short dance with a group of dancers on the stage before officially starting his opening speech for the expo. After the opening, the group of people who went out met a beautiful law enforcement officer who came to deliver a subpoena. Just like in the movie, Happy took the subpoena, and the beautiful law enforcement officer showed a different interest in Xia Yu. "The song you just sang on the stage was very nice. I have never heard it before. Did you write it yourself? Are you a friend of Tony Stark?" said the beautiful law enforcement officer. "He's my boyfriend, ma'am." Natasha Romanoff came out from behind and pulled Xia Yu into the car, saying to the beautiful policewoman without giving Xia Yu a chance to answer, "You haven't gotten married yet?" The beautiful policewoman shouted at the driving car. Unlike the movie, this time Tony did not drive a sports car, but an extended sedan. Because the expo was in New York, Xia Yu was wealthy, but still a car-less person in New York. In fact, all the cars in Los Angeles belonged to Tony. "Ha ha ha, Natasha Romanoff, you are jealous. Didn't you say that you would never restrict Xia? Xia, congratulations on entering into marriage life early. Why don't you two get married? I will give you the most dazzling wedding in the world." Tony teased as soon as they got in the car. Natasha Romanoff gave Tony an unpleasant look and explained, "I really don't have any restrictions, but seducing my man in front of me is called a challenge. In fact, I hate it most when others challenge me." Xia Yu changed the subject and said, "Let's talk about tomorrow's hearing. The military and Congress can't wait for you to hand over Iron Man's technology. The media is reporting it crazily every day. If you weren't Tony Stark, if you were someone else, the government would have taken it away by force. I won't hand it over. The government and the military have no chance of taking my personal property. Natasha Romanoff, I'm a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. now. You should at least help me share the pressure." Tony said. "Tomorrow's hearing cannot threaten you, Tony. The government will not push you too hard unless it has no other choice. S.H.I.E.L.D. will support you at the appropriate time, and you will know then." Natasha Romanoff said. The author has something to say, That's all for today. Tomorrow the word count in each chapter will be normal. This book is almost at 50 chapters and will be recommended with 100,000 words. I beg my brothers to urge more comments and collections in the next few days. Iron Man 2 and Thor are a transition, and the Avengers Alliance era is about to come. Chapter 42. The next day, at 9 o'clock in the morning in Washington, D.C., Tony arrived at the Senate almost on time. This was a carefully planned hearing. Because it was notified at short notice, Tony was not given much time to react. The government and the military hoped to get the technology directly, otherwise with Tony Stark's powerful influence, it would take who knows how long the dispute would take. Therefore, none of the members attending the hearing in the Senate this time were allies of the Stark family. The hearing started the same as in the movie, with the Senate questioning Tony Stark about his ability to create weapons of huge amounts of power and demanding that he hand over the technology for the weapons, but Tony resolved the issue with ease and humor, then summoned Justin Hammer to testify, and then Rhodes came on stage and read a small section of his report. Iron Man is not affiliated with any government unit and therefore poses a threat to national security and interests, said Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes. The previous article mistakenly wrote him as a colonel, but he was actually a lieutenant colonel at this time. I won't change it, so let's leave it as it is. Changes began at this time, and S.H.I.E.L.D. began to exert its influence. A congressman interrupted Rhodes and said, "No, Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes, you are wrong about one thing. Iron Man is not unaffiliated with any government unit. He is a consultant to S.H.I.E.L.D. and a combatant of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Special Combat Team. Now we would like to invite the representative of S.H.I.E.L.D. to come on stage. He is a good friend of Tony Stark and a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. He has enough say on this matter." No one reacted to the sudden change, so when Xia Yu walked in a suit, Tony Stark's face was full of surprise. "You didn't say you would come last night?" Tony walked up to Xia Yu and hugged him, whispering. "Yes, Tony, isn't it a surprise?" Xia Yu said. "On behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D., I can prove that Tony Stark has joined S.H.I.E.L.D. for several months as a consultant of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a member of the Special Combat Team. I have S.H.I.E.L.D.'s employee files, Tony Stark's ID, and Tony Stark's payroll in recent months. I think this is enough to prove the legitimacy of Tony Stark's identity as a government employee," Xia Yu said to himself. The senator sitting in the middle of the stage was one of the members of Hydra. Xia Yu knew him, as he had appeared in Captain America 2. He was arguing in a low voice with the senator next to him, and he was caught off guard. Justin Hammer saw the above situation and asked first, "Mr. Xia, whether Tony Stark is a government employee or not will be discussed later. The purpose of my coming here today is to prove that Iron Man is a weapon of huge amounts of power. As the largest weapons supplier of the Ministry of Defense, I am absolutely qualified to prove whether something is a weapon or not." The most tragic villain in Iron Man 2, the eternal runner-up in weapons development, whose lifelong dream is to surpass Tony Stark. He finally waited for Tony to close the weapons department and became the largest weapons supplier for the Department of Defense. However, the sudden appearance of Tony's iron battlesuit made him feel ashamed. Xia Yu smiled and said, "As the largest weapons supplier to the Ministry of National Defense, in your eyes, can everything be considered a weapon? I'm considering handing over my kitchen knife to the government." Xia Yu first mocked Justin Hammer a little, and then continued to say to everyone, "As a friend and colleague of Tony Stark, I have seen the iron battlesuit, had close contact with it, and even understand his fighting style. Yes, Tony's iron battlesuit is equipped with a large number of weapons, micro-missiles, incendiary bombs, etc. These are the source of Iron Man's fighting power, not the iron armor originally. You are changing the concept, Mr. Xia. According to my observation, Tony Stark's steel battlesuit can fire high-energy density energy cannons, which is a weapon." Justin Hammer insisted. "You are the one who switched the concepts, Mr. Hammer. That's just a thruster. Let me give you an example. If you were placed under a rocket launcher, I'm just giving you an example. You would be instantly sprayed into a roast duck, or only bones might be left. I'm sorry that I'm not an expert, but that's not a weapon. It's a thruster, just like the vehicle you were riding in when you came here. I can blow up your fuel tank with 3 shots, but can you say that's a bomb? It's obviously called a fuel tank. I'm a weapons expert. If your expertise is only to call everything that can cause harm to the human body a weapon, then obviously I can also be a weapons expert. That's why you were able to become the largest arms supplier to the Department of Defense after Tony Stark announced the closure of Stark Industries' weapons division." Xia Yu mocked him mercilessly. You are changing the concept. We all know what Iron Man is. He is invulnerable to swords and swords. Justin Hammer was hit in the vitals by Xia Yu and shouted angrily. My bulletproof car is also invulnerable to swords and spears. I can even provide you with a set of invulnerable steel armor, Mr. Hammer. But this is not a reason for it to be a weapon. The correct understanding is that Iron Man is equipped with weapons, not that Iron Man originally is a weapon. If you think the weapons should be handed over, I think Tony will be happy to hand over the missile and incendiary bomb technology on the armor, but the prerequisite is that you need to send someone to communicate specifically with our shield, gentlemen. Xia Yu continued. The Hydra congressman also reacted. Seeing Justin Hammer losing ground, he said, "Thank you Mr. Xia for your speech, but seeing is believing. We have a video clip from Colonel Rhodes' report. Let's take a look." Just like in the movie, Tony Stark changed the video at the beginning to a video of Hammer and the military conducting human armor experiments. Today's hearing made the Senate and the military return home with nothing and lost face in front of the media. Tony ran to Xia Yu and gave him a high five without any concealment. The Hydra senator sitting in the hearing seat was almost green with anger. I can prevent the threat of nuclear war. Iron Man is very useful. I mean Iron Man equipped with weapons. We are safe, America is safe. You can forget about my products and my property. But I have helped you a lot because I alone can maintain world peace. Tony's high-profile nature still made him say this. The angry senator cursed on the stage, while Tony Stark walked out arm in arm with Xia Yu. Before leaving, Xia Yu turned around and gave the senator a mysterious look. The look as if he was looking at dead man made the senator shudder all over. This was the unconscious pressure brought by Xia Yu's powerful inner strength. Chapter 43. As a result, as soon as the two of them went out, they were picked up by S.H.I.E.L.D. and taken to the New York headquarters. In a small conference room at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters in New York, Xia Yu and Tony Stark met up with Natasha Romanoff and walked in. I knew there's no such thing as a free lunch. You government departments are all the same. See, Xia, it's time for me to pay the bill. Tony Stark said to Nick Fury, who had been waiting for a long time. Watch your words and actions, Tony. You are now a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. We just offended the Senate and the military for you. Can't you say thank you? Nick Fury said. If I am a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., then your help to me is my duty. If you want me to pay for it, I'm sorry. I never say thank you for things that cost money because that is the service I deserve. Tony Stark said. Stark, what I am about to say next concerns the lives of billions of people around the world. I hope that each of you will take it seriously. Nick Fury looked at everyone and said seriously. Okay, I'm listening. Tony Stark said, and Xia Yu and Natasha Romanoff nodded in agreement. This story begins in 1995. At that time, I was a level 3 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Phil Coulson was a rookie who had just joined S.H.I.E.L.D. I was responsible for leading him. Nick Fury began to recall the past. Xia Yu interrupted him at the beginning. Well, let me ask, was Phil Coulson's hairline that high at that time? Hey, I'm talking business, Nick Fury shouted. Actually, I wanted to ask that too. Please continue. Tony Stark said. One day I received a mission. A woman fell from the sky and smashed a big hole in a Blockbuster video store. I took Phil Coulson to find the woman. She was wearing a green tights and looked like a character in a game. She said she was from the Star Troopers and her name was Versus. Nick Fury told the story of Captain Marvel bit by bit, the Skrulls who can change genes from the distant Andromeda constellation, the powerful Kree who are born warriors, the Pegasus Project, and the Tesseract. Nick Fury spoke in great detail, revealing a vast universe to everyone. Natasha Romanoff and Tony listened with great interest, while Xia Yu pretended to listen with great interest. So you already had the Avengers plan? Is it to prevent the Earth from being invaded by aliens? Xia Yu asked. Yes, those high-ranking politicians would not agree to this plan unless the aliens came right away. They are afraid that they will not be able to control this kind of power. In fact, there has never been a suitable candidate for this plan. Nick Fury glanced at Tony and Xia Yu and continued. Until Tony was kidnapped and taken to Afghanistan, and you went to rescue him, and Tony became Iron Man again, I saw hope that this plan could be realized. And then there was the appearance of the Hulk, and he escaped from the military's sight. Because of the appearance of the two of you, I increased the intensity of my surveillance on him. Even if Bruce Banner went to the uninhabited area in the northernmost part of Greenland, we had a satellite always keeping an eye on him. Bruce Banner shot himself there, but after his death he turned into Hulk and spit out the bullet, and caused an avalanche in Greenland, and then we discovered this. Nick Fury pulled out a photo from his mobile phone for everyone to see. What is this? Captain America. Natasha Romanoff said in surprise. Tony Stark interrupted, are you sure this isn't a circus dancer? Nick Fury glanced at Tony and said, we've found him. He's still unconscious. It's only a matter of time before he wakes up. So first we need to solve the personnel problem. We have Tony Stark, Xia Yu, Captain America, the two best agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Black Widow and Hawkeye. Hawkeye is not here for the time being as he is on a mission. There is also a big green guy who can transform at any time. Although he is very dangerous, I think we will find a way to control him. What do you think? Xia Yu. Nick Fury said the last sentence to Xia Yu. Why are you looking at me? I can't control that Hulk. Xia Yu said quickly. I didn't say you could, I just thought you would find a way, just like you could make me fall asleep with a needle, there will always be a solution, said Nick Fury. Tony Stark interrupted again and said, you seem to have forgotten the most important issue. Your plan cannot be approved by those politicians. Yes, Stark, but we can't wait for the crisis to come and then respond hastily. We can't gamble with people's lives. I only met people from 2 planets back then. There are so many aliens out there. Who knows what race will land on the Earth one day and become interested in it. We need to protect our own strength. The world needs the Avengers. Nick Fury said. You want to carry out this plan secretly? Make us fighters who don't see the light of day. Tony Stark said. No, that's not the case. I want to set up an emergency response team. I just want to hide the identities of most people from outsiders. For example, Bruce Banner, Natasha Romanoff, and Hawkeye are originally from S.H.I.E.L.D., so they just need to keep this identity. Captain America can also enter S.H.I.E.L.D. I will let them join you under the pretext of going on a mission, to train or complete some tasks. Nick Fury looked at Tony again and continued, so we need a base and equipment that is unknown to others. I can't make any big moves, but now I have you, Stark. Oh, damn, you should say this to Xia Yu. He has made a lot of money recently and has become a stock god. Tony directly passed the ball to Xia Yu. I don't have a luxury yacht worth $800 million. Xia Yu rolled her eyes. In the end, Nick Fury did not let everyone make a formal statement because this was not a trivial matter and it required time to consider. Xia Yu's arrival has caused considerable changes. Captain America will be born at least 2 years earlier. If all goes well, Avengers will debut in the Marvel world ahead of schedule, waiting for a big event to show it to the public, such as the Battle of New York. Chapter 44. In fact, Natasha Romanoff, Iron Man, and Xia Yu are now considered a small team of Avengers. If this is the case, in addition to the established plot of Iron Man 2, the subsequent Thor Xia Yu also wants to take them both to participate. What surprised Xia Yu the most was that Nick Fury actually revealed the matter of Captain Marvel in order to implement the Avengers plan. This shows how determined he is this time. Xia Yu thinks there will be basically no problem this time. The biggest problem is that no one wants the Avengers to become pawns in the hands of politicians. This is the most difficult thing to balance. In the movie, after the Battle of New York, the whole world owed the Avengers a favor. After Captain America dismantled Hydra and Black Widow released confidential documents, the Avengers who broke away from S.H.I.E.L.D. looked extremely powerful, but they also caused criticism from governments around the world. The Sokovia Accords were signed by 117 countries, which was the best counterattack against the Avengers' overstepping of their authority. In fact, this kind of dissatisfaction has a long history. No country wants to have a group of bosses above it, who go around destroying terrorists like Hydra under the banner of justice every day. It's not that the Avengers did anything wrong, but who hasn't done something dirty behind the scenes. Their behavior of coming and going after the fight has indeed made many governments lose face. This is because the Avengers have saved the world, so people are too embarrassed to say anything. But after Scarlet Witch accidentally blew up the civilians of Wakanda, the King of Wakanda, the previous generation Black Panther, took the lead in launching the Sokovia Accords. As a result, more than 100 governments agreed to it and hyped it up in the media around the world. It was at this time that Captain America and Iron Man had a fundamental disagreement. Iron Man was in favor of signing the agreement because they needed time to win the trust of the public. From Iron Man's advice to Captain America, it can be seen that joining first to win everyone's trust and then having the right to speak to change the agreement is actually a very mature and sophisticated approach. Captain America is a pure warrior and a soldier. He doesn't want his gun to be controlled by those in power. This is the root cause of the Civil War. The Winter Soldier incident is just a detonator. Tony just needs to vent his anger by fighting. He will figure it out sooner or later. In fact, when Xia Yu was watching the movie, she supported Iron Man's approach even more, because you cannot fight against the whole world. When the media and governments around the world hold on to this matter, there is no way to fight back. This is also the sadness of being a superhero. Even if you do 10,000 good things, as long as one bad thing happens, you will be questioned and even scolded. It was not until Thanos came that the Avengers were freed from all their restraints. This was partly because of the disaster, and partly because of the strong participation of Wakanda. Wakanda has money, land, and technology. After all, Wakanda is a country, and Tony Stark can never compare to this. To put it bluntly, Wakanda plus the Avengers Alliance are more powerful than the whole world. So if Xia Yu does not want to be restricted too much by joining the Avengers Alliance in advance, he needs to make the Avengers Alliance have extremely powerful military force, not just personal, but collective and technologically. It is unrealistic to unite with Wakanda now, so Xia Yu has only one way to go, which is to lead the Avengers Alliance out of the earth. Only with a higher vision and higher strength can he be above all things. Therefore, Xia Yu's initial plan is to use the plot of Thor to get in touch with Asgard or to have initial contact with the world outside the earth, but the prerequisite is the Battle of New York, and the Avengers need to have huge amounts of reputation on Earth. Otherwise, even if they have the power to destroy the Earth, they cannot be above everyone else. Avengers are superheroes, not tyrants or rulers. Xia Yu thought everything through and began to prepare for the early establishment of the Avengers, but the most important thing at the moment was the story of Iron Man 2 and Thor, which was about to begin. Why? Because Tony Stark received an invitation from the Monaco Racing Club to watch the race. Chapter 45. Before going to Monaco, Tony Stark finally completed the armor belonging to Xia Yu. The appearance is basically based on Xia Yu's original armor, and the color is all black. Being able to fly is Xia Yu's biggest demand, but Xia Yu has armor on his hands, so thrusters cannot be installed on his hands. Therefore, Tony installed 2 jets on Xia Yu's back, as well as 2 small ailerons, which can automatically fine-tune the direction of the jets and ailerons according to the twisting of Xia Yu's body. There is also a jet on the outside of each calf, which will automatically adjust the angle according to the direction to assist flight. Tony specially added a lighting design to the reactor on his chest, inspired by Xia Yu's 18 dragon subduing palms. From the outside, it looks like an oriental dragon roaring upwards. Xia Yu was very satisfied with this. Could his nickname in the future be the Dragon Warrior? Xia Yu thought jokingly. Finally the day came. Xia Yu brought Natasha Romanoff on Tony's private plane, definitely accompanied by Pepper and Happy. After so much time, Happy and Xia Yu became very familiar with each other. Xia Yu recalled the movie Iron Man 2, when Natasha Romanoff appeared in Morocco as Pepper's assistant and arrived in advance to do the preparation work, but now she went with Xia Yu as her girlfriend. Thinking of this, Xia Yu couldn't help but smile as she looked at Natasha Romanoff, who was chatting with little Pepper about how she was going to have a good time with Xia Yu. Due to her intervention, Natasha Romanoff in life was behaving more and more like an ordinary girl, which made Xia Yu feel very relieved. On the plane, Tony secretly told Xia Yu that he was going to race in person. Xia Yu was amazed at the powerful inertia of the plot. She didn't expect that Iron Man would still do such a crazy thing except for the poisoning factor. But think about it, this is the real Tony Stark, isn't it? It seems that Tony Stark is destined to have a fight with Death Whip, but with the presence of Xia Yu this time, Death Whip is destined to be defeated even faster than in the movie. Moreover, Tony upgraded the reactor but did not get palladium poisoning. Ivan Vanko, the Death Whip, must be depressed to death. When I entered the club, I was greeted by Justin Hammer before I saw Morning Whip. He was a man who dreamed of surpassing Tony Stark and had been trying to imitate Tony Stark. To some extent, Tony might be his idol. Oh, let me see who this is. Isn't this the sharp-tongued S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Mr. Xia? Why are you here too? Did S.H.I.E.L.D. assign you to be Mr. Stark's bodyguard? Come on, Iron Man doesn't need a bodyguard. Justin Hammer got angry when he saw Xia Yu. He could allow himself to lose to Tony Stark, but he could not allow himself to be speechless by Xia Yu at the hearing. He could not accept being silenced by an unknown Oriental boy. Before Xia Yu could open his mouth to fight back, Tony said, "In fact, Xia is my good friend and my business partner. The herbal medicine group is our joint project, and he is the big boss." Justin Hammer originally thought that Xia Yu was just a small figure, an assistant assigned to Tony Stark by S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that, but he didn't expect that he was the boss of a large company. The herbal group has been very popular recently, and the effects of its health and beauty drugs are very obvious. The key is that he is so young and handsome, which makes Justin Hammer feel indescribably uncomfortable. "I didn't expect to meet the mysterious boss of the herbal group here. I've wanted to interview you for a long time." "Hello, Mr. Xia, I'm Christine, a reporter from Vanity Fair." After hearing Tony's introduction, a beautiful reporter walked out from behind Justin Hammer and said to Xia Yu with a burning gaze, "Oh, Xia, she is a very good reporter. She had an in-depth communication with me last year. Remember when I called you in the middle of the night? The report was quite impressive. I suggest you accept her interview," Tony said to Xia Yu. "This pervert." Xia Yu thought to herself, but put on a very gentle and polite smile on her face, and said, "Thank you for your invitation, beautiful reporter, but let's make an appointment first. After all, the arms expert behind you is waiting anxiously," Xia Yu said while pointing to Justin Hammer behind her. After saying that, he turned around and left with Tony. "I'll find you as soon as possible," Christine shouted from behind. "Hey, I think you should interview me first," Justin Hammer whispered from behind. At this time, Xia Yu, who had walked a few steps away, suddenly turned around and said to Justin Hammer, "You know what? Mr. Hammer, if you want to surpass the legend, or become a legend, you need to find your own way, instead of blindly imitating others. This will only make you look like a joker, even though you are ugly to begin with. I suggest you buy our company's beauty products, which can at least make you look younger. Come on, Xia, let's not disturb her rare interview." Tony followed Xia Yu and said something, then he turned around and left with Xia Yu, not giving Justin Hammer any chance to refute. Chapter 46. Ignoring Justin Hammer, who was fuming with rage, the two of them ran over to sit with Natasha Romanoff and Pepper Potts. The four of them occupied a table by the window, where they could watch the cars on the track outside. After sitting for a while, Tony ran away with the excuse of going to the bathroom. Xia Yu knew that he wanted to go racing. Sure enough, after a while, she found Tony Stark in a racing suit being interviewed on the TV on the wall. "Ah!" Little Pepper was angry. After screaming, she asked Xia Yu, "Xia, do you know about this?" Xia Yu certainly couldn't take the blame, so she said sincerely, "I don't know, I'm also surprised." "No, I can't let him do this, it's too dangerous," said Little Pepper. "Pepper, he's already on the court, just let him go. I'm here, so nothing dangerous will happen," Xia Yu said confidently. It was true that Tony had already entered the venue, and with Xia Yu's assurance, Little Pepper thought about it and let it go, but seeing how nervous she looked, she was indeed very worried. Finally the race started, dozens of racing cars whizzed past on the circular track. Suddenly a staff member in orange work clothes jumped onto the track. People around who saw it screamed and tried to dissuade him, saying it was too dangerous. System task: defeat the Sangbian, reward points, 3000. Kill Sangbian, reward points, 5000. Affects subsequent tasks, it's time to show your strength in front of the public. Put on your new uniform, Pikachu. Tmul, what do these two options mean? Xia Yu asked. Master, at the moment Sangbian is an incomplete form. Killing it will affect the subsequent task of killing the complete form of Sangbian. Tian Mao replied. Xia Yu understood. If he killed Sangbian right now, the follow-up would be over. If he defeated him, Justin Hammer would steal him out of prison. Then he would use Hammer's funds and resources to build a large number of unmanned mechas and build himself a new set of armor. If he killed him again at that time, he could gain some points. Maybe there would be a system lottery. He was definitely defeated. Xia Yu glanced at Natasha Romanoff and Pepper, who were watching the game on TV, and slipped out quietly. As soon as she left, she was discovered by Natasha Romanoff, who followed her silently. Pepper was so focused on Tony that she didn't even notice that the two had left. Xia Yu came to the audience, and Natasha Romanoff followed him out and asked, "Is there something wrong?" Xia Yu took her hand affectionately and said, look at that guy who entered the venue. Is he very strange? What is that? Is that the arc reactor on his chest? Xia Yu didn't need to explain what was wrong. Morning Whip Ivan Vanko had already activated the reactor, and the two energy lines behind him began to charge, burning all his clothes. That should be it. You wait here for me and I will stop him. Xia Yu said. Well, be careful. Natasha Romanoff said with concern. As soon as Natasha Romanoff finished speaking, Xia Yu changed her clothes instantly. With one jump, she flew over the audience seats like a big bird and directly landed above the track. For such a short distance, Xia Yu did not use the flight function of the armor, but instead landed above the track and began to slowly descend with her internal force. At this time, Sangbian had already broken a racing car with one whip. The whip wrapped in high-pressure energy instantly cut off the entire body of the racing car, and the cut-off part still had the remains of the car body melted by high temperature. The audience around screamed, but there were definitely some who were watching the fun calmly. Pepper Potts and Justin Hammer upstairs also saw this scene. Pepper Potts was worried about Tony's safety, so she ran to the audience to find Xia Yu. Justin Hammer looked at the morning whip on TV, especially the small reactor on his chest, and a happy smile appeared on his face. The scene was a little chaotic, but it was okay for the audience because no danger was falling them. Especially when Xia Yu rushed out and then slowly landed in the sky. Unlike Iron Man who whizzed past, Xia Yu looked more graceful and pretentious, so he immediately attracted the attention of the whole audience as soon as he came out. Chapter 47. Xia Yu's appearance not only shocked the audience, but also shocked Sangbian in the field. Who are you? Sangbian asked, whipping the ground with whips in both hands. Hey, your tattoo is really ugly. To be honest, it's a bit messy and looks dirty. Xia Yu didn't answer him and spoke to herself. Get out of the way or die. Xia Yu's appearance was a bit cool, and Sangbian was a bit lacking in confidence to take action. I should be the one saying this. Put down your whip and surrender, otherwise. Xia Yu didn't raise his hand but sent out a palm through the air. A golden dragon-shaped energy force whistled towards the funeral whip. Screams rang out again from the audience. What is this? Is this magic? Did he release a snake? This seems to be the dragon in Eastern legends. Why doesn't it have wings? But it's still pretty nice. Sangbian also showed an extremely shocked expression on his face, but he did not dare to slow down at all. He swung the whip and shattered the golden dragon that Xia Yu had shot out. Is this the reactor in your chest? Is this released by the reactor? Sangbian asked puzzledly. Wow, it's more powerful than I thought. Then you try to block it this time. Xia Yu ignored Sangbian's question. After the last word came out, he moved his body with both palms and made 7 or 8 consecutive palm strikes. 7 or 8 golden dragons roared towards Sangbian. Sangbian's face changed color, and he quickly waved the 2 whips in his hands to resist. In the end, he defeated 2 of them, dodged 3, and was hit by the rest. Those who have seen the movie know that Sangbian has the physique of an animal and was hit by the car several times without any problem. Xia Yu also showed mercy because he could not be killed due to the mission reasons, so Sangbian was beaten to the ground and vomited blood. Heroes appeared and villains fell to the ground. The public's favorite drama was performed before their eyes, and the sound and light effects were so good that everyone stood up and cheered. At this time, Tony's car just came over. Xia Yu stepped forward without hesitation and stopped Tony's car with both hands. It was not until the engine started smoking and the rear wheels rolled on the spot that Tony reacted and stopped the car quickly. Looking at the reactor on Sangbian's chest, Tony was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Xia Yu took out the Mark V that looked like a suitcase from the ring and threw it at Tony's feet and said, "Put it on and go ask him yourself." Tony started to equip his armor, and the whole audience cheered again. Both reporters and audiences felt that it was the right time to come today, and today's content was much more interesting than racing. After completing his transformation into a beautiful girl, Tony Stark followed Xia Yu to Sang Whip. "You lost, Tony Stark, you lost." Death Whip yelled at Tony while lying on the ground. "What's the point of losing? He didn't even fight with you." Xia Yu said. "Then he loses too. He will die of palladium poisoning. He will definitely be in extreme pain before dying." Ha 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 ha. Sangbian laughed crazily. "His poison has been cured." Xia Yu pointed at Tony's chest and said. "Impossible, impossible, he must have been poisoned." Sangbian said. "It's true. Tony said seriously for once, reaching out to take the reactor from Sanguip's chest. Tony looked at the reactor and continued, "You are Ivan Vanko, right? Anton Vanko is your father, right? I am indeed not poisoned. I synthesized a new element to replace palladium. You made this thing well, but the speed is a little slow." The police finally arrived and dragged the injured Deathwhip away. Deathwhip angrily shouted at Tony, "Tony Stark, your family is a thief and a butcher. You will definitely be punished." "Bah! It was your father who was greedy and that's why he got punished. It's not our family's fault. I will send you soap in prison," Tony shouted. At the moment all the vehicles on the track pulled over and the situation was under control. Then many spectators and reporters rushed down and surrounded Xia Yu and Tony Stark. Xia Yu was sharp-eyed and saw that the person in front was Christian, who was supposed to be interviewing Justin Hammer. "Tony, leave the battle to me, and I'll leave the reporters to you." After saying that, Xia Yu flew away and disappeared in the air in the blink of an eye. Tony Stark glanced at the reporters swarming over, gestured to Pepper Potts on the stage, and flew away. The reporters lost their target halfway through the run and looked around for a while. Finally, they found Pepper Potts in the audience. "Pepper Potts is over there. She must know who that mysterious Oriental man is." A group of reporters turned around and ran towards the audience again. "Natasha Romanoff, let's go." Pepper saw so many reporters coming and opened her mouth to say to Natasha Romanoff, who was following behind her, "I'm already on my way." Natasha Romanoff's voice came from far away in the corridor, leaving Pepper helplessly surrounded by reporters. Chapter 48. Besides Tony, you are the only one in the news. Last time, Tony said in the Senate that there would be no small reactors within 5 to 10 years, but now they have appeared. The government will definitely seize this opportunity to force Tony to hand over the technology. Tony is in big trouble this time. Natasha Romanoff said to Xia Yu, who was lazily lying on the bed. "Let Tony deal with his troubles. He will find a way. We are here for tourism, dear. This is the blue and white town in Morocco, one of the most beautiful and romantic towns in the world. Why should we talk about Tony here?" Xia Yu lay on the bed without raising her head. Natasha Romanoff had just finished taking a shower and was drying her hair with a towel while watching the news on TV when she heard Xia Yu's lazy voice. Natasha Romanoff said again, "What about you? The reporter who said he wanted to interview Justin Hammer wrote a moving report about you, saying that when people were in crisis, you fell from the sky and saved everyone, and that you were a dragon rider who protected people's safety." "Dragon Knight? Damn, I'm neither Yanguo nor Yin's hyping," Xia Yu said. "What did you say?" Natasha Romanoff asked. "I said I will only be your knight. I don't want to ride a dragon. I want to ride you." Xia Yu pulled Natasha Romanoff into her arms. Children should not make up their minds. No matter how much pressure Tony Stark was under, Xia Yu happily took Natasha Romanoff to have a great time in Morocco. In a week, the two of them almost visited all of Morocco. Just when Xia Yu wanted to take Natasha Romanoff to South Africa, Nick Fury called Xia Yu and brought her back to Los Angeles. It is interesting to note that Nick Fury was anxious to call him and Natasha Romanoff back, but made an appointment for them to meet at Tony's house. "Our Dragon Knight is back, with his princess. We have a lot of trouble here, but he's going on a trip with someone," Tony Stark said sarcastically as soon as they met. "Don't call me Dragon Knight, Tony, I hate this nickname, I really hate it. Compared to your Iron Man, I feel like an NPC in an old game console," Xia Yu said. "Xia, we do have a lot of troubles to deal with," Nick Fury said seriously. "We?" Xia Yu looked at Tony and then at Fury, and continued, "We all know that our name as S.H.I.E.L.D. is a joke. You said we, Tony, do you officially agree with your Avengers plan?" "Yes, I agree to this plan. If what this guy said about the aliens is true, I agree, but I have a condition. I can try to believe this guy with an eye patch, but I don't believe the S.H.I.E.L.D. director," Tony Stark said. "Since the big boss who provided the funds has spoken, I have no problem with that. Let's talk about our troubles next." Xia Yu poured himself a glass of wine and made a gesture of invitation. Nick Fury began to list them one by one. The first is the problem of Stark's armor. The government can no longer suppress it, but Stark has come up with a best of both worlds solution to this matter. "Lieutenant Colonel Rhodes?" Natasha Romanoff inquired. "Correct answer. James Rhodes is Stark's good friend and also an Air Force colonel in the military. Stark gave him a set of armor but did not give him the skills. This way he could explain to the government. Then he could find a time to let Colonel Rhodes wear a battlesuit and fly around, so that he could also explain to the people. Nick Fury said. Another thing is that Steve Rogers has woken up. This is my problem. He cannot appear in front of the public for the time being. We need to give him some psychological treatment and evaluation to ensure that he can adapt to today's society. Nick Fury took a sip of wine and continued. The last thing I need to trouble you, Xia, is a trip to New Mexico to pick up a hammer that fell from the sky, said Nick Fury. Xia Yu thought that this was good, except for the Hulk. The initial stage of the Avengers Alliance was complete. Why me? I'm just a first-level agent with no salary, Xia Yu said. Nick Fury threw a new certificate over and said, from now on, you are also a consultant. Regarding the problem with the hammer, Phil Coulson has already gone there. Just go find him and build a little friendship with your future teammate Hawkeye. That's all? Didn't you say there were a lot of troubles? Tony's problem has been solved, and the captaincy is left to you. I'm going to go on a blind date with a hammer. Is there anything else? Xia Yu asked. Natasha Romanoff is temporarily responsible for the location selection of the Avengers headquarters and other issues. There is nothing else for now. Nick Fury said. Xia Yu said depressedly, you were so serious and said a lot of troubles, and now there are no more. Do you know what the Avengers represent? Why would I hide this from everyone? All of you together are like a bunch of nuclear warheads. I am holding a nuclear warhead that may not be under my control, so I must be serious. Nick Fury said seriously. Being serious does not necessarily mean being serious, Nick. The world has changed. Look at Tony Stark. Before he became Iron Man, he was well dressed and moved in and out of high society. Have you ever seen him do anything human? Xia Yu said. Well, you win, you changed my mind, said Nick Fury. Tony Stark. Chapter 49. In a house at the outermost part of a small town in New Mexico in the southern United States, several burly men in black suits were moving some electronic equipment, notebooks, photos, and drawings into a car. Jane Foster is trying to stop them. I'm going to sue you for invasion of privacy. Phil Coulson explained helplessly, we are just calling, we are good people. While the two sides were arguing, a black figure fell from the sky. It was Xia Yu. Before anyone else could speak, Xia Yu spoke first. I agree with what this lady said. These government agents are not good people. They abuse their power and oppress the people. They are just a bunch of bastards. Oh, Phil Coulson, you are robbing, bastards. The girl named Daisy next to Jane Foster asked Xia Yu, who are you? Are you Iron Man? Xia Yu looked at the girl in surprise and said in an exaggerated tone, I'm not that old man Tony Stark, I'm one of these bastards. Let's go, Phil Coulson. I don't understand why you asked me to come here. I'm not a blacksmith. Xia Yu asked Phil Coulson in the car. Phil Coulson said, the director said that S.H.I.E.L.D. has 2 consultants. If technology cannot solve the problem, ask Tony Stark. If technology cannot solve the problem, ask Xia. I sound like a charlatan, Phil Coulson. Xia Yu said helplessly. Xia Yu followed Phil Coulson and his team to the location of the hammer. The S.H.I.E.L.D. people built a huge amount of awning on the hammer to facilitate the use of electronic equipment. 4 plastic shed passages were built around the awning for entry and exit. When Xia Yu came in just now, she met Hawkeye, but unfortunately Hawkeye was slow to warm up and just nodded to Xia Yu. Phil Coulson and Xia Yu were standing next to the hammer. Phil Coulson was introducing the origin of the hammer to Xia Yu. A few days ago, this hammer fell from the sky like a meteor, landed here and smashed a big hole in the ground. Local people came to watch the fun, but the strange thing is that no one can lift the hammer. Phil Coulson pointed to the pile of sand under the hammer and said, look, the sand underneath is not moving at all. It's definitely not a problem of weight. Even if a heavy truck is used to pull it, it won't help. Phil Coulson stood up and walked to the edge of the awning, pointing at the ground and continued, based on the impact of the hammer hitting the ground, we can only roughly estimate the minimum height from which it fell, because we don't know the weight of the hammer, so. Oh, God, Xia, how did you do it? Xia Yu swore that he just wanted to try it out of pure curiosity. He never thought that he could pick up this hammer. After all, it is said that only people with a very pure heart can do it, like Captain America, a saintly person. Xia Yu was complacent at first, but I knew I was pure. Unexpectedly, Xia Yu came to a space full of chaos energy in the next moment, with lightning all around and silver snakes dancing wildly. What is this place? Where is Mjolnir? Xia Yu wondered. Young man, who are you? A voice suddenly came. Who? Who is talking? Xia Yu turned around and looked around. After turning around, Xia Yu suddenly found someone behind him. It was an elderly man with white hair, golden armor, and one eye, holding a spear of eternity. Xia Yu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Why did he suddenly run to Odin's side? It turned out that Asgard's things should not be touched carelessly, especially when Odin was alive. Young man, answer my question, who are you? Oh no, I should ask, where are you from? Odin said with a smile. Xia Yu was sweating all over. He didn't dare to answer Odin's question. Instead, he pretended to be innocent and asked back, who are you? Where is this place? Where is the hammer in my hand? Odin still had a kind smile on his face and said, this is the inner space of Mjolnir. Oh, Mjolnir is the name of the hammer in your hand. Xia Yu asked in confusion, I am in the body of a hammer? Are you the god of hammers? Xia Yu suddenly asked happily, can I make 3 wishes? You are Aladdin's hammer, right? You must be. Odin was confused, what a mess. Odin took a deep breath and said, I am the father of God Odin. I come from Asgard. What you are holding in your hand is Mjolnir from our Asgard. This is the weapon of my son Thor. I have cast a spell on this hammer. I believe that most people cannot lift it, such as you. This is the power of the rule, but you picked it up. You are not affected by the rules of this world. So, where are you from, young man? This time, Xia Yu was completely panicked. Chapter 50. Tumul, Tumul, come out, someone is dead. Xia Yu shouted in her mind. Master, don't worry. It's just a shadow. It's okay. Tian Mao said. FK the phantom, this is Odin, I can't stand a phantom. Xia Yu complained in her heart, but Tian Mao was silent. Seeing Xia Yu remain silent for a long time, Odin smiled and said, it's okay, young man. Even if you don't speak, I know you are not from this world. I am not interested in where you come from. I am just an old father who worries about his children. Now that I have met you, let's chat. My real body is sleeping and it's very boring. Xia Yu was chatting with Odin inside the hammer, while Phil Coulson was terrified outside. Xia Yu picked up the hammer and suddenly stopped moving. There was no response when he was called. Phil Coulson even tried to slap Xia Yu hard, but there was still no response. Several medical staff were called over, and they found that there was no problem with his breathing and heartbeat. Phil Coulson immediately blocked off the scene and sealed off the scene again, leaving only Hawkeye and himself. After reporting to Nick Fury told him to wait and see. Phil Coulson and Hawkeye also tried to take the hammer from Xia Yu's hand, but it was just like the one they had just put on the sand. They could only stare at each other. In the hammer space, Odin seemed to have not spoken to anyone for a long time. He talked to Xia Yu for a long time. Xia Yu summarized that Odin was quite miserable because his eldest daughter wanted to set up her own business but was suppressed by himself. The second brother, Thor, was impulsive, reckless and brainless. This time, he was deprived of his divine power and the hammer was thrown down to him. However, he was still worried, so he separated a spirit body of his own and watched it inside the hammer. The third brother, Loki, is a descendant of the giants of Jotunheim. He is insidious and cunning. He is unwilling to submit to his elder brother and dares not trust him too much. Xia Yu thought to himself, if you weren't Odin, I would jump up and slap you. What the father of God is. Your children's education is worse than the last. Throughout the history of Marvel movies, your Odin family is the most troublesome. Just because of your family disputes, you have caused so much trouble. On the surface, Xia Yu said respectfully, Grandpa, there is a saying in our hometown that children and grandchildren will have their own blessings, why do you worry so much? Odin looked at Xia Yu meaningfully, and said in Chinese, you have an old saying that there will always be a noble person to help you in your life. I see, boy, you are the noble person destined for my son. The sudden Chinese language startled Xia Yu, but he felt strangely friendly. He said, old man, you can speak Chinese. The Father of God is indeed omnipotent. I don't understand what you mean by noble people. You are gods, and I am just an ordinary person. How can I have noble people? Odin opened his mouth and startled Xia Yu again. What the hell is a god? He is just a person with a higher level of life. I learned Chinese from a magician called Ancient One. She said this herself when we first met. After saying this, Odin looked at Xia Yu with a strange look again and continued, I am not the Ancient One. I cannot see the future very clearly, but I can see that when Asgard faces Ragnarok, you will be fighting alongside my son. Xia Yu talked with Odin's spirit in Mjolnir for 3 hours. No one knew what agreement they reached or what exchange they made, but both sides were very satisfied with the communication. This meeting with Odin has greatly deepened Xia Yu's understanding of this world. For example, a powerful being like Odin Ancient One has a certain ability to touch a trace of the rules of fate and can see some fragments of the future to a certain extent. Most importantly, Xia Yu received an invitation from Odin to visit Asgard later. In the canopy, Xia Yu slowly opened her eyes. Phil Coulson jumped up excitedly and said, Xia, you finally woke up. Tell me what happened. Why can you pick up this hammer? Why did you suddenly stop moving? What happened? Xia Yu scratched his head, it's okay, I was just too sleepy and took a nap. Looking at Phil Coulson's resentful eyes, Xia Yu smiled, I'll tell you in a moment. I have to report to Nick first. After saying that, Xia Yu took out his phone and prepared to make a call. Suddenly, as if he remembered something, he said to Phil Coulson, when I was motionless just now, did you hit me in the face? Phil Coulson. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.